Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, do you know what season it is right now?
It is Oscar season.
That is right. It is Oscar season. So,
I was going to try to kind of be smart about it, but no. I just cut to the chase. It's Oscar season.
Yep. Sometimes you just got to cut to the chase. So, since it's Oscar season, we're going to be doing something fun. And we're going to be going into a series of movies. What series of movies are we going to be talking about, Tony?
We're going to go with movies that have won Best Picture. These will not be the first movies we've covered that have won Best Picture, because we have done some recent ones like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. We did Coda, we've done Braveheart, we've done Gladiator, we've done Rocky. But we decided, let's do Best Picture winners.
Yep. So the next few episodes are just going to be straight up Best Picture Oscar winners leading up to the Oscars, or the Academy Awards, if you would prefer saying it that way.
We're going to the 97th Academy Awards.
The 97th Academy Awards.
That's a long time.
That is almost 100 years of movies, awards for movies.
I did have a period back when you could actually get like physical copies on Netflix, and I just basically binged almost every Best Picture winner that I had not seen. There were a few that were hard to get at that time on DVD or Blu-ray. I was actually able to catch one of them on Turner Classic Movies during their large series in February, where they just show Oscar-nominated movies. So not necessarily Best Picture winners, but as long as it was nominated for an Oscar.
All right.
And it said Tom Jones from 1963 was one of the. That was how I caught that one.
Okay.
And I've actually not caught a few of the more recent ones. Like I haven't seen Green Book yet. I have not seen The Shape of Water yet. I have not seen Nomadland yet. And Spotlight. I haven't seen Spotlight yet.
There are several Best Picture winners that I haven't seen, surprisingly. There are several that I have seen, but there are several that I haven't seen. So I'm looking forward to this series because there are a couple I'm sure that we'll be doing that I had not seen until the podcast.
And, I think opinion can kind of, run the gamut when it comes to the Oscars. I think you kind of have your cinephiles that will have one opinion on things. You just have your general movie lover that has one opinion, and the broader public, which might have another opinion. I think obviously, much has been made about viewership, over the last 10, 15 years with the Oscars. So it may not be something that's as baked into the public consciousness anymore. That's really any award show, the Grammy, Emmy, right? But I think we're going to try to find a good mix of films here. And it's funny, even the ones that we've done already kind of are a different variety, right? We have Rocky, which is different than Gladiator and Braveheart, which those two are kind of
those two are kind of similar, but they're all way different than Coda.
And then Everything All at Once is kind of its own thing. It's probably one of the more unique Oscar winners. And the one we're doing today is a very unique Oscar winner.
Yes, it is. So, the movie that we might as well just get into it today. The movie that we're doing for our first movie in our Best Picture winner series is going to be Silence of the Lambs,
which is one of my absolute favorite movies and a very appropriate winner. And it's a movie that inevitably, every time I watch this, I have to ask myself, am I leading a life that would lend itself to either Anthony Hopkins eating me or not eating me?
It's always important to look inwardly on yourself and, determine that, because also you got to figure out if that's what you would want, like if you would want Anthony Hopkins to eat you or not.
Well, that's actually a very valid point,
because it might be a great way to go. If he's going to enjoy your liver with some fava beans and a nice chianti.
Or spoiler alert for the sequel, keep you alive for the whole shebang. Well, for a brief amount of time, but we won't get to Hannibal yet. But these are the important questions.
Very important questions. I've never really looked at that, like thought about that. Am I living a life that would cause Hannibal Lecter to eat me or not?
It's a very, this movie has some very different ends to it than the recent movies that we've done. I was thinking about this, and I was looking back, going back to the Mighty Ducks, right? Well, there's a main plot point in there where it's basically just about Emilio wanting to score on Charlie's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Dante's Peak is really all about James Bond trying to find Sarah Connor's magma chamber.
Yep.
Dumb and Dumber, come on, it's all about the briefcase.
And all about that. Yeah, Lloyd trying to get with Mary.
About returning the briefcase. It's really all about sex.
Mm-hmm.
And Groundhog Day is, using sex with Andy McDowell to get out of a time loop, right?
We've done a lot of movies about sex lately.
Yes.
Wow.
Silence of the Lambs is not, it's sexual, but it's not really about that in the same way that those other movies were.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about Jodie Foster wanting to do that with Anthony Hopkins.
No.
Anthony Hopkins is not interested really in that he's fascinated with Jodie Foster.
But yeah, he's not really into that.
A very different end.
But Scott Glenn kind of gives off some vibes of to
and really in the screenplay and the book, it's very much far more explicit. It's very kind of implicit in this. But kudos to Scott Glenn in this movie too, by the way.
Yeah, he was great in this movie. Scott Glenn's just
terrific,
great.
Supporting actor. Yeah,
it's always great seeing Scott Glenn in a movie.
It's also great seeing Ted Levine in the movie.
Yes, that too.
But yeah, Scott Glenn, in the 80s and early 90s, he was in everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's cool. He started cooling down after that because you have to be in everything after that. So I did enjoy his role as Stick in the Daredevil series.
Daredevil, yes, he was a great Stick, and he was one of the more memorable characters in Vertical Limit.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen Vertical Limit. I don't think I have actually. I remember the movie.
I've seen it a couple of times. It's good. It's it's if you like mountain climbing, it's great. I'm sure. But. No, it's a good movie. It's enjoyable.
All right, but this movie overall does have a pretty solid cast. You also have Frankie Faison.
Mm-hmm.
He would also show up later in Hannibal, and he was awesome in The Wire. If you're a fan of that TV series,
that is one that I still have not watched.
And then you have Roger Corman has a brief role.
Yep,
as the FBI director. George Romero is uncredited in this movie.
Yes, he is. You got Charles Napier.
A lot of this movies, even though most of this movie takes place at the training facility in Quantico and around Baltimore and other areas in the Tennessee Valley, a lot of it was filmed around Pittsburgh. And George Romero is from that area, so that makes sense. Charles Napier, Brooke Smith, Casey Lemons. We mentioned Ted Levine, which is such a different role. I think so many people had seen, they'd seen Silence of the Lambs, and then they watched Monk. And after they watched Monk, it took them a long time to figure out.
Yeah. It was the same guy. Same guy.
Not Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah. Tony Shalhoub is in another movie that we're going to do one of these days. Galaxy Quest. He was great in Galaxy Quest. But
you have Brooke Smith. I mentioned Charles Napier. And finally, you have Darla, the dog Precious.
I was just going to say, we can't forget Darla.
Oh, and Anthony Held also.
Yeah, Anthony Held is one of those people that he always plays a dick, and he does it so well.
He does it incredibly well. He is one of those of the 80s and 90s. He had a few choices if he needed someone that was going to play an absolute dick.
Yeah, I don't know that he's quite the level of William Atherton.
He's not quite William Atherton, but he is a good backup. And in some ways, I kind of think he fits better for this role than William Atherton.
Yeah. Another one that plays a good dick is Cole Meany.
Yes.
Cole Meany, he's up there at that William Atherton level, I think. It probably helps that his last name is Meany.
I was going to say who makes it a good dick is Dick Clark, but
Well, that's kind of on the nose.
But yeah, Anthony Held, he's not quite on that William Atherton level, but he's good. And what was it? And The Practice, Deep Rising. I remember him being in that. What else did he have? Never saw Postcards from the Edge, but yeah, he was also in a lot of those kind of John Grisham movies in the 90s, like Pelican Brief and The Client.
Yeah,
interrogated Mystique and X-Men: The Last Stand.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, no, it's kind of like the five principles are him, Scott Glenn, Ted Levine, Anthony Hopkins, and Jodie Foster. It's funny, it's a large cast, but it's really kind of a very tight cast as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I decided, since this topic is about the Oscars, let's speak a little bit about the Oscars for this movie, right? So it obviously won Best Picture, but at the time, it was also one of the few movies to win Best Picture, Best Director, Best Lead Actor, Best Lead Actress, and then the Screenplay. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did it. It Happened One Night did it. Those three movies. And it's kind of funny because Anthony Hopkins only has 16 minutes of screen time in this movie. It feels like
was
he's
it
in this
was it
movie
16? Because I read somewhere that it was 24 minutes of screen time.
I've always wondered that because I had read that originally and I've seen it before. I haven't timed it.
Yeah,
I always thought it seemed like 16 was short, because like he commands.
Yeah, every second that he's in, he commands that scene. But yeah, it was 24 minutes, 52 seconds of screen time, which is the second shortest amount of screen time for a best actor in a leading role.
David Niven has
for Separate Tables.
Separate Tables.
At 23 minutes, 39 seconds. Okay. Now, if you look at it as percentage of the movie...
Well, that's the next thing I was going to get to.
Percentage of the movie, Anthony Hopkins got it with 21% of this movie.
Okay.
Was his season.
So I say the movie's, it's a roughly 2-hour movie, right around 2 hours. So, there's other movies that have short lengths, but yeah. So, in fact, I think there were a couple awards bodies that gave him supporting actor. Because obviously Jodie Foster is kind of the lead, but he is kind of like a co-lead in himself. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jodie Foster is in almost every scene in this movie. I mean, there's some that are just Buffalo Bill, obviously.
Yeah.
And there are a few scenes where it's only Anthony Hopkins. Well, not only Anthony Hopkins, but it has Hannibal Lecter and not Clarice.
Yeah. There's
more scenes that have Clarice without him than the other way around, though.
Yes, because the two of them only really share 4 scenes together, something like that.
It's nuts.
The entire movie, the two of them are only in 4 scenes together.
And I want to get into later about his character. It's kind of it's really interesting because like he's not even the main villain of the movie.
No,
even though he was voted greatest villain of all time by AFI.
Yeah, which. I mean, you can look at it as, sure, he's definitely a villain. He's a serial killer. He's, all this. But at the same time, is he really the villain of the movie, though? I mean, because, Buffalo Bill is definitely the villain of the movie, and the main villain of the movie. But does Hannibal Lecter count as a villain in this movie?
Yeah.
Really?
You could almost say.
For the most part. I mean, there are a few scenes where.
More of a villain in this movie.
Yes, you could. There are a few scenes where, Hannibal definitely counts as a villain.
Oh yes,
but for the majority of the movie, he's more of a consultant.
Yes. That's, at first, police just think she's kind of getting to understand him more as a profile when it's really, they want information on Buffalo Bill. It makes sense. And he's brilliant. He's a psychiatrist. He's happened to kill a lot of people, He's a good person to consult with.
Yeah.
Especially when there's a bunch of glass between you and him. And, if you're an intelligent young woman, or even young gentleman, because, the original was Manhunter, and then they remade that as Red Dragon, he was not interested in consuming them either. He was more than happy to consult there as well. So,
yeah.
Anyhow, so it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. We mentioned the 5 at one: Best Picture, Best Director was Jonathan Demme, who also made one of my favorite kind of like musical movies of all time, Stop Making Sense. If you're a Talking Heads fan, most people would know that.
Mm-hmm.
The next movie he did after this was Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington. He's a very interesting director. And then we mentioned Anthony Hopkins. Jodie Foster won Best Actress. This was her 2nd Academy Award. She won a few years earlier for The Accused. And she's had such an interesting career because I remember growing up, knowing that name, mostly because of probably Silence of the Lambs. I didn't really know it at the time. And the movie Maverick.
Yes.
And, Nell and a few other things. But, she was a teen star back in the 70s. She was in the original Freaky Friday. She was in Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then she ended up going to college at Yale. And she kind of took a hiatus. And after that, she got back in the movies again. And then it had, Best Screenplay was Ted Talley. It was the gentleman that won the Oscar for this. And then it was also nominated for Best Editing and Best Sound.
Okay.
Even though there's a whole host of other things this movie could have been nominated for.
Yeah.
Best Score.
Oh,
Howard Shore did the score of Lord of the Rings fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's done a bunch of Martin Scorsese movies. Yeah, he could have easily won Best nominated for that.
The score in this movie was
Fujimoto.
The score and the cinematography in this movie was friggin' amazing.
Yeah. The score, the beginning of it just sets the tone. And, I'll hit that when we kind of start really diving into the movie. the production design, the gentlemen and the ladies that worked on that, the three of them have all been nominated for other movies. And just like, I think of his cell, the courthouse scene, all the scenes are just like such terrific sets.
Yeah.
That could have easily been nominated.
Oh, yeah.
And then even the costume design, Colleen Atwood, who has kind of been a legend, especially working with Tim Burton. And like, you kind of think of the Lecter mask is so iconic.
Yeah. It's...
And it's even like Jodie Foster, like, again, most of the wardrobe in this movie is not that showy, but fits all the characters incredibly well.
Absolutely.
Like, just even throwing like Anthony Hopkins in like a t-shirt.
Yeah. Which they wanted to put him in an orange jumpsuit, but he convinced them that it'd be a lot creepier if he was just in all white.
Yeah. it is.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, it wasn't nominated for best makeup, but like it could have been. So, and even this movie is ultimately about a costume designer. So, like, it should have been nominated for best costume design.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's the Academy Award history, and what else it was nominated for, and what else it won. So,
yeah. So
Anthony Hopkins would go on to win a second Oscar.
Was this his first Oscar?
Yes.
Oh.
He won 2.
For some reason, I thought he had won something before this.
No. He had been nominated before this for The Elephant Man. So.
Which, The Elephant Man is where Jonathan Demme saw him and thought that he would be great for Hannibal Lecter.
So one of the other actors that could have been Lecter was Gene Hackman. Who had already won for The French Connection.
Yep. But yeah, it's funny because Anthony Hopkins, when he was approached by Jonathan Demme, and he told him that Elephant Man was why he thinks he'd be perfect for Hannibal, he was like, but the doctor in Elephant Man is a good man. Jonathan Demme's response was, so is Hannibal Lecter. He's just in an insane man's body.
So it's... But who Jonathan Demme wanted for the role of Clarice was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Who would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah.
She's a great actress. I'd be interested to see her Clarice. It's hard now because Jodie Foster owns the role.
Yeah. Yeah, but Michelle Pfeiffer turned it down, and then he finally because Jodie Foster, I think, wanted it early on. She was wanting to go for it, but yeah, Jonathan Demme wanted Michelle Pfeiffer. But after Michelle Pfeiffer turned it down, he had a meeting with Jodie Foster and then hired her after that one meeting.
Okay. I know he also
that
considered Meg Ryan.
Okay.
But she turned it down because of it was just too dark for her. I don't think Meg Ryan would be fit right for the role.
I don't think so. Yeah, I do too, but I don't think she would be right for this. Jodie Foster nailed it.
She did. I think they also had at some point they talked about Laura Dern, but they went against that. And the other person that auditioned for this was Molly Ringwald.
Really? I don't think I could see Molly Ringwald in this role, but at the same time, it might be one of those things that nobody's expecting, and then it ends up being a great performance.
But they thought she was too young.
Okay, I could see that.
But I think Jodie Foster is perfect. I mean, she plays it perfect, and then also, you look at her. I think she has that right balance of looking young and kind of raw and inexperienced, but you don't feel like she's too young. I get where they're coming from. So.
Yeah. So one gripe that I have with this movie, right? Not so much with the movie itself, but with how it's categorized. It's okay. So it's categorized as a horror movie, which, yes, sure, it has horror elements to it. Absolutely. But I don't know that I would really put this entire movie in that horror category.
I would agree with this.
It's absolutely a thriller.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thriller, no question. But when I think of this movie, I think of movies like Seven. Seven is not called a horror movie.
No.
Seven is a thriller. And they're both very psychological, where, which is where I could see where they could, put this in a little bit in the horror category, because it is a psychological thriller. And it's got a guy that keeps women in a pit in his basement and, wears their skin. But that's really only a small part of the movie. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really agree with it being called a straight up horror movie.
But yeah, it's just a small part of the movie.
Yeah, but it is included in several.
It's a disturbing movie. I can see it. Yeah, it's
horror
disturbing,
movie
but a lot of thrillers are
and,
disturbing.
Yeah, which I see it as a similar movie, like a similar style as Seven, which is a great movie that we're going to be doing on the podcast.
I get that
at some point, but
a lot of people list it as the only horror movie that won Best Picture. But I would agree. I don't like putting it in that classification necessarily. So again, you could say that there's parts of it that are kind of scary.
Oh yeah,
but it's not a horror movie.
No.
I mean, there's parts of Seven that you could say are kind of scary. I mean, anything with Gwyneth Paltrow is just frightening. Step 1, cut a hole in the box.
What's in the box?
Nope. Not going to spoil 7.
What's in the box? Oh. Yep. Well, should we get into it?
I think we should get into it, yes.
All right. So, as always, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you have not seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, then pause the podcast, watch the movie, come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind spoilers, then keep on listening. But you have been warned. We are going to be spoiling this movie. So we start out in the woods outside of Quantico, Virginia.
Yes. And I love how it already sets up the mood, right? We talked about how the score was underrated. And even like some of the settings are underrated, right? It's you have just kind of the score from Shore, and it's kind of ominous. It's setting the tone. It's gray. It's damp outside, right? It looks like it's rainy. Looks kind of has that feel of late winter, early spring when it's just kind of raw and damp.
Yeah.
And I was looking at. I looked this up because I was,
or maybe even like fall.
I was gonna say it could also be a fall
there. Late winter, early spring, or late fall, early winter.
They say late fall, early winter, right? It's not most of the leaves have fallen. You don't have the pretty leaves anymore. It's just, So it just gives you that immediate feeling that it's kind of gonna be cold.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're not in for a happy movie.
No. This is not a happy movie. This is not a happy movie at all.
Some people kind of have happy endings in a way, but at the same time, they also will be scarred.
Yeah.
Well, except for one person, he gets to have his happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get there. I know we said spoiler alert, but we'll get there. But yeah, it says, it just says right out the gate outside Quantico, Virginia, which, if you're not aware, is where the training is for the FBI.
Yes, it is.
And what's interesting too is that, you'll see a lot of shots of like the buildings and the training center, and very rarely does the FBI allow filming at the training academy, but they did here.
Mm-hmm.
So
so we get Jodie Foster jogging. She's running through the woods on a trail. Yeah,
she's training.
Yep, she's
by herself. She's not.
Yeah, she's just out for a run, doing her own little PT, and she's running past some other groups that are training, also doing different things. Climbing ropes, doing little obstacle courses. She's just running on by.
Most of them are groups of men. They kind of look back at her, right? There's going to be this kind of constant theme that's going to come up of these. They're just men staring at Jodie Foster.
Yeah. And, we know that, other than just the way that the weather looks, we know it's a little chilly because she's wearing her FBI sweatshirt.
She's got a sweatshirt on.
She's wearing a sweatshirt, and, you been running for a little while because, you got the sweat stains on the sweatshirt.
Yeah, and she kind of goes up like a rope ladder. So she's kind of going over parts of it's probably like a little obstacle course that they have. And finally, this other dude comes out and calls her over and says that Crawford wants to speak with her, right? Kind of feels like, the scene in The Exorcist when Marin is just kind of doing his prayers in the woods, and the novice comes up, hands him a letter.
Yep.
We got a special job for you.
Yep. But that's a different movie.
It is a different movie.
We may do that one sometime. We may not. I don't know. I know we probably will because you love that movie, and I do love that movie. Yeah, we can get into it if we do it. We can get into how I feel about that movie if we do it.
Funny thing about that movie is that movie was almost 20 years earlier, and was also nominated for Best Picture. Anyhow, so again, it's another guy that calls her off and looks at her as she's kind of jogging back in to the training academy, to the buildings. She gets in, and then she gets on the elevator with a bunch of dudes. She gets off the elevator. They're all gone. Where did they go? They just disappeared.
Yep. I guess
she's going.
She ran a little too much, and maybe her stench, her sweaty, stink from running.
Yeah.
Kinda,
like, women aren't supposed to stink like that.
maybe it scared him off.
Maybe she farted.
Maybe she did.
Anyhow, so she's going down to the office, and
maybe what we missed. Maybe what we missed was a scene, an elevator scene, like in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
It was very, this is Die Hard. I know it's Die Hard with a Vengeance, but it's a good thing Ricky told everybody about how he uses his badge number.
Yeah.
For the motto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad Ricky died.
Well, spoiler alert for Die Hard with a Vengeance.
But at least, it alerts, John about Otto.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway. But yeah, enough about Die Hard with a Vengeance until we get to that movie, because we will be talking about that movie one of these days.
There's a couple other agents there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, if you're looking for Crawford, he'll be right back." Right? So she goes to wait in his office, and again, this is where you get into like there's so many small details of this movie that are just perfect.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like the head of behavioral sciences, and you can tell right now that there's this. We don't know it before this, but there's a current serial killer that he's investigating. Yes. And you can see his name is Buffalo Bill, and there's newspaper clippings. There's all these things all over the office. So it looks like the office is someone that's investigating something and trying to crack a case.
Yeah.
But also, he has a couch in his office. He's got a pillow, in bed sheets.
Yeah.
He's sleeping in this office.
In his office. Maybe not every night, but he sleeps in his office.
And so this is where this is one of the things about this movie that's so perfect. It's there's all those details of how the newspaper clippings are arranged, how his desk is arranged, and then just the couch with the bed sheets and the pillow. Right? It's sometimes movies that a lot of times for the set decoration and art direction, the movies that kind of win are the ones that kind of have these very elaborate kind of sets, right?
Yeah.
Something that you might associate with like a movie musical. They use something that's could very easily win this year's Wicked.
Yeah.
Right? Or, going back, Chicago, or not even, this wasn't a musical, but The Aviator had big grand scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Titanic. They built a whole ship that looked like the Titanic.
Yeah.
You could see that's a flashy type of thing. And this one, no. This one's just a kind of gritty, real life.
Yeah. Simple.
Office.
Real. Yeah. Same kind of thing. Same kind of office. If you went into, the head of behavioral sciences with the FBI, if you go into his office, it might look like this.
That's right. Right, you have the little manila folders, filing cabinets. Definitely looks like an FBI office.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, meanwhile, while she's staring at everything, I like it because you kind of get a close up look on her face, and this is one of a trademark of Demi. He loves these close up on the character's face, And it kind of creates an illusion of breaking the fourth wall because you kind of get drawn straight into their eyes, right?
Yeah.
And she's dissecting everything that's happening here, right? And that's when, like, you know, Crawford comes in, like, behind her. He kind of slips in and he says, "Good morning," right? And it's Scott Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they sit down and he's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm you know," he apologizes for pulling her off the course.
Yeah.
But he has a bit of a job and they have a little banter. It's like, you know, your instructors tell me you're doing really well. It's like, you know, it's like, "Oh, well, you know, they haven't posted the grades yet." But, you know, and she's just kind of, you know, she's not uncomfortable, but, you know, she's not like a nervous uncomfortable, but,
she's
you know,
in the boss's office.
right.
And
she's really not sure what to make of it.
Yeah.
So, it's not like a creepy uncomfortable, just kind of a nervous uncomfortable because, like you said,
like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know why I was called into his office. You know,
and you know she's looking up all these things about this creepy serial killer. So,
yeah. But you know, it turns out that she is, you know, leading her class in, you know, the behavioral studies.
Yeah.
You know,
and a job came up, and he thought, you know what, she might be good for this job, and we'll get into the details of that. But then they have another little conversation about, like, how he had a seminar at UVA when she was an undergrad, and she grilled him hard about the Bureau's civil rights record.
Yeah.
He's like, "I gave you an A." I love how she corrects him. A minus.
A minus. Yep.
Just like this, every super dirty kid, like, "No, that wasn't an A.
It's an A minus.
It was an A minus." What are you talking about? Everything else was an A. You gave it the A minus.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, teachers only give A minuses to the people, the students who seem a little bit too big for their britches. You know, just to kind of put them in their place. It may be a work, but they give them an A minus to teach them a lesson.
No, there's a point to that, and you know, you occasionally hear the stories of those professors, right? That it's like, I never give A's.
Mm-hmm.
And they make the students as well. Guess what? I never get B's.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we got a problem.
Well, then you'll get an A minus.
Anyhow, so he starts going over her profile, right? It's like, okay, well, you know, you were a double major in psych and criminology, and it's just like, oh, and it says like, oh, when like you finish at the academy, you want to work with me. Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh yeah, you know, very, very much so." You know, she's just kind of shyly going about it. And then she's like, "Well, you know," he's like, "Well, you know, I had this job, and like, you know, we're interviewing serial killers, and there's one that's giving us a lot of trouble."
Mm-hmm. There's one, he will not talk to anybody.
Which is interesting. Even thinking about this, because I know we didn't really bring it up earlier, but you know, this is technically a sequel to Manhunter.
Yeah.
Which came out several years earlier but bombed, but they went ahead with this anyway, even though at the time some studios were reluctant because Manhunter bombed.
Yeah, but then so Manhunter
it's kind of a sequel, but remade as Red Dragon.
Yeah, Manhunter was remade as Red Dragon.
So it's kind of, this is an interesting one that's like, it is technically a sequel, but it's technically kind of the first in the series also, since they kind of rebooted it.
Yeah.
Even though Manhunter's kind of gone on to have like a cult following, I think after the success of this and Red Dragon just being kind of iffy because Brett Ratner directed Red Dragon, and you don't really. I'm sorry. There's so many Brett Ratner movies that could be like great, but he's behind it, and you're like, no. I mean that has, you know, it has Ralph Fiennes. It's got Philip Seymour Hoffman. Let's get Philip Seymour Hoffman on fire.
It's got some great talent. But yeah.
Anyhow. Back to the Silence of the Lambs, right? So, you know, who's saying like the big thing is what they're really looking for in talking with these serial killers is seeing what they can piece together from them to help solve unsolved cases.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, oh, okay. Well, is it all, you know, and essentially from the point of view where you might originally be thinking about, it's like, okay, well, Did they commit this particular crime? Or can we piece together how they think to potentially solve these other ones?
It's basically like if you've seen the Netflix show Mindhunter.
Yes.
It's pretty much exactly what they're doing there. But that was the early stages of serial killer investigations. This is, 20 years later.
This is it's also a good point. Like, I mean, this is at the not really at the height. This is kind of as serial killers started kind of going kind of on the downslope. You don't really hear about serial killers anymore. To be honest, like that's kind of an interesting, it was a bigger phenomenon in like the 70s and 80s. And this is 1991. Anyway, so she asked, who's the guy that's being reluctant to talk? He's like, the psychiatrist, Hannibal Lecter.
And her response is like, Hannibal the cannibal?
I love how nonchalant. So yeah.
Hannibal the cannibal
eats people.
Okay, yeah.
And they're like, oh, and like again, like if I'm sure for most people that probably saw this movie, they went into some expectation. But if you had it, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's a serial killer that eats people. His name is Hannibal. He's the guy that rode lions. I mean, not lions, elephants.
Oh.
So he's like, okay, and I love how like the next thing he's just like, I don't actually expect him to talk to you, but I need to say we tried.
I need to say we tried.
And then he's like, well, is this then like, and she kind of pieces that together, like, well, is this about Buffalo Bill? It's like I'd like to think so, but no. It's like I just we gotta try this essentially.
Yeah.
And so he gives her a temporary badge because again, she's training. She's not an actual agent.
She's still a recruit.
So, and just and he says like I need to report by like Wednesday by 0800, right? I love the next line. He's like, don't let him get inside your head. Right? Because above all else, you got to remember one thing about Hannibal. And another one's like, oh, what's that? And then you cut to Dr. Chilton. It's like,
yep,
he's a monster.
Chilton, played by Anthony Held.
The entire time he's playing with the pen.
Yeah,
and Anthony Held's great. Right away, he just commands it.
Yeah,
and I love it. That's actually like this instant foreshadowing. He's playing with his pen. He has a pen like all the time.
Yep.
But we'll get to that.
Yep, we'll get to the pen thing in a little bit.
And you can only tell like Clarice like doesn't like him. Right?
Yeah.
And he keeps talking. Because he's just like, oh yeah, he's a pure psychopath. It's rare that we have some. And I love it. It's like, from a research point of view, he's our most prized asset. and it's funny because like you look at Chilton, like I don't think he's actually doing a lot of actual research on Hannibal.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He's just someone that he has behind some glass, essentially.
Yep.
But
he seems like he's just heard more stories about him than he's actually done research on his own about him.
Yeah. And then he shifts the focus like, we have a lot of like, agents and detectives that come in, but none as attractive as you. And she's like rolling her eyes. He's like, are you going to be in Baltimore overnight? It's like, this could be quite the fun town with the proper guide. She's like, no, my orders is to talk with Lecter and then report back immediately. Nice way of shutting him down.
Yeah.
But what I like about this is like, again, you get into the set design. His office is so much different than Crawford's.
Yep.
Right? It's a big, spacious office, right? He's a big desk.
Yep.
It's neater.
He's clearly in it more for the status.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, there's two pieces of artwork. So when you have Clarissa standing, right, and she's behind her on the far side of the wall in the office, there's a picture of these 4 men that are kind of staring at her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then behind Chilton, he's sitting at his desk playing with his pen. And there's this really macabre scene that looks like it's out of like, some death scene of like the late Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And you can't quite make out what it is, but it seems like it's some type of death march or something like that. And I tried looking it up to find out like if there's I couldn't find anything that actually places what this artwork actually is. Sadly.
So you think they maybe just created it for the movie?
They may have, yeah. So, I was watching it. It was, I watched it actually. Well, I watched it the first half again recently after watching it again last week. Anyway, and the second time watching it again, I was really trying to focus on that, and to no avail. So, if anyone does know what that artwork is, feel free to drop us a line on that.
Yeah. We would like to know.
So at that point, they leave the office, and so I'll put it this way too. The other thing I like about this scene, and it's interesting how it's just shot, is because you had the smaller office of Crawford, and they're both sitting at the desk, so almost kind of more on that even playing level, kind of going back and forth, right? And this one, you just kind of have her standing up, kind of uptight, more tense, and he's sitting back, relaxed in his chair. And it plays off a far more interesting dynamic between the two.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, they leave the office because now they're going to go down so she can go talk with Hannibal the Cannibal. Right? And they're going down, they're walking down steps, and he's going through all the procedures because, again, he is a criminal. He's a serial killer that's in a psychiatric hospital, essentially. So he is criminally insane.
Yeah.
But obviously there's procedures.
Yep.
In terms of talking with them, right? So they get down, and he's like, finally he's like, I'm going through all this, for a reason because, and he starts telling this story about this one time where he complained of these headaches, so they got him out, and he essentially ended up attacking a nurse by biting her face.
Yeah.
And biting her jaw open to that effect, and they had to talk about what it took to kind of like wire it back together, right? And this is one of the other great things about this movie. It's a disturbing movie, but there's actually a surprisingly there's not a lot of gore in this movie.
No, there's really not a lot.
As much violence as there is.
There's a little bit, but really not much.
It takes kind of after more of the, they don't really show it to you. They tell you about it and let your mind fill in the blanks about what happened.
Yeah.
Right? You see Clarice's reaction to it, and, that's it. And they go down to like the guard's office, right? Where they have three guards and then like an orderly.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so they're telling her, Hannibal is the last cell, and because they're takes her down a row of cells. There's, I think, 3 other prisoners in there.
Yes. And
other than
the orderly's name, we don't really hear from the other guards. Right? We see them with, they had their guns, right? There's things, again, like little details about, what procedures are supposed to be. And he leaves her with Barney, right? And first Chilton thinks he's gonna go in there with her. He's like, no, well, he doesn't like you and he's afraid of you, like, so it might mean he won't talk, right? And then I love how it's like, you could have saved me the trip.
Yeah.
Then she tries to charm him. It's like, well, then I wouldn't have had the pleasure of walking down here with you. So he leaves her with Barney, and Barney, again, he's kind of he's just telling her, he's like, we have video. I can watch the entire thing to make sure like everything's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And they have a very specific thing. Like, they had the doors, he opens the doors electronically and then closes them as she goes through. Right. And then she walks down, and there's 3 of the cellmates, and one just kind of laughs. There's other guy that's in there. And there's this other dude that just kind of climbing the cell. His name is Miggs.
Yeah, Miggs. Miggs is the only prisoner's name that we hear other than Hannibal.
We don't hear the name of the other two guys, right? And then he just kind of hisses at her. He's like, "I can smell your cunt."
Yeah.
just out of nowhere.
Keeps walking.
She's like, oh, okay. And then again, this is the whole setup of this is interesting too, because like it's obviously like it's down in like the basement of the hospital.
Yeah.
And it's like the stone foundation of this, right? Everyone else, just has basic bars on their cells, right? But not Hannibal.
Not Hannibal. Hannibal has a plexiglass, wall.
Yep. And they
with holes in it.
Little air holes in the center,
mm-hmm.
right? And he still has the stone behind him.
Yep.
And for some reason, at the end of this hallway, there's a stairwell. Where does that stairwell go to?
I don't know. That
is one question in this movie I have.
They never tell us. They never tell us.
Because it's not guarded.
No.
Unless it is at the top.
It could be. It could be. Maybe it goes up to nothing.
Maybe it goes up to Sasquatch.
Maybe.
Maybe this is where the government keeps Sasquatch.
Maybe, and that's why it's not guarded, because they go up there and Sasquatch just eats whoever goes up there.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's a Rancor.
Maybe. But it would make more sense to have the Rancor be below them so they could drop them down a trap door.
Anyhow. So, yeah. So she goes there, and it's actually nice, white lit cell. As he said, it's plexiglass, the rest is stone, and then you have Anthony Hopkins, a.k.a. Hannibal Lecter, right? Just standing there in his prison suit, right? He's got, and he's just kind of patiently waiting.
Yeah, he's just standing there. Just creepy as hell. Just standing there.
It is creepy as hell. He's just kind of standing at attention. He's just waiting for her to come. He knows she's coming. And because there's a chair set up. Like Barney set up a nice folding chair for her, right?
Yeah. It's
Barney played by Frankie Faison, by the way.
Yeah. And the chair's a few feet away from the wall or from the glass. And it's basically like right in the middle of the little hallway that she's walking down.
And one of the things they do tell is like, don't go up to the glass.
Yeah, don't get too close.
Right. The only other thing, you don't really see it yet. You'll see it later. There's a little drawer that they can slide things in and out.
Yeah. But right. Yeah, so Hannibal is standing there staring at her, just not blinking. Which is the weird thing about, just to make his character that much creepier. Hannibal, in all of his scenes, in all of Anthony Hopkins' scenes, he rarely blinks, if ever.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like, he's in such control of this performance. It's unsettling because, like, there are these scenes like this where he's absolutely terrifying, and then he can be charming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't take you long within this scene to kind of be like, oh, okay, I kind of like him. I know he eats people.
But maybe they deserved it. Maybe they were delicious. And she just, she gets there and says, hey, Dr. Lecter, my name's Chloe Sterling. May I talk with you? And he's just like, good morning. Like, you're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you? Right? Yep, just right off the bat.
It's like, I am, yes. He's like, yeah, we know we're trying to, get, profile, right? And always is like, may I see your, I love it. May I see your credentials?
Yeah.
Right?
So she, holds up her.
She holds it up, just like how, a cop might hold something up, and I just love it. He's like, closer.
Yeah, closer. And then
she steps
a little closer.
Like,
and then she puts it away. She's like, it expires in a week.
You're not real FBI.
You're not real FBI, are you?
Like, no, I'm a trainee. But again, there's other things within this, though. I mean, other tiny details in this. Like, when she's walking closer and you have, again, it's a close-up of his face.
Mm-hmm.
and you see his eyes just staring. And eventually they stare down. So at first he's staring like at her face, her eyes, and then he stares at the credentials.
Then he looks at the credentials. Yeah. And he's surrounded on all of his walls. He's got drawings. He's got sketches that he's made.
Yeah. And so, and she's about to take note of these, right? Because he's like, okay, well, you're so Jack Crawford sent a trainee to me, right? He's like, well, how about you see if I'm qualified or not? After talking with you, right? So she sits down, right? And then that's when he asks her, like, so tell me about MIGs, like multiple MIGs. What did he say to you?
Yeah.
And then she admits what he said. Mm-hmm. I was like, it's like I myself cannot. And then he starts sniffing. he starts, there's air holes in the center. There's also air holes at the top of the plexiglass, mm-hmm. right? And he just starts talking about like, you wear Avion skincare. It's like, and sometimes the temp, but not today.
But not today.
It's like, and I can see you bought your best bag, but not your shoes, right? And mm-hmm. he's like sizing up every detail. Yeah. Again, he's a psychiatrist, whatever. He's an intelligent dude.
Yeah.
He's trying to get all these details to profile her.
Yeah. So, they come to an agreement where, she shares something about her and then he shares something about him. And they just go back and forth like that.
I guess she gives a little bit about herself. A little bit. They don't do a whole lot yet. But that's when she notices the artwork, mm-hmm. right? And he's like, did you do these drawings yourself? It's like, and he just looks at it. He doesn't say yes or no. Oh, does he say yes?
I think he says yes.
And he says yes. But he goes more into what it actually is. And he says, that's the Duomo in Florence, seen from the Belvedere. Right? And as in Florence, Italy. So mm-hmm. It's
not Florence,
which is interesting because we will I thought it might be Florence Henderson. See her Duomos.
Careful, Mike Brady might have something to say about that.
Which is it's interesting because Hannibal, Florence will be a key setting in Hannibal, the sequel. Mm-hmm. So and also take note of, he says the Belvedere, and no, not Mr. Belvedere.
No, unfortunately.
So no, and she's like, well, all the detail just from memory. It's like, memory Agent Starling is all I have.
Yeah,
I don't have a view.
Yeah,
very blunt. And then instead of continuing that conversation, she does make a little bit of a mistake about asking about the questionnaire.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, but you were doing fine. You were courteous and you were receptive to my courtesy. And you established trust with that embarrassing truth about Biggs. And he's like, well, I'm only asking you to look at this. Like, and then all of a sudden he's like, that's when the doctor's like, oh, well, Jack Crawford must be very busy if he didn't come himself. He must be trying to find that new one, that Buffalo Bill. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back and forth about, how many he's killed, why he's called Buffalo Bill, which started out as a bad joke in what was it, Topeka homicide?
Yeah,
I want to say it was like, was it Wichita?
I think it might have been a Wichita homicide.
Yeah, I thought it was, or was it just, yeah. So it wasn't Kansas City.
No,
I thought it was like
I think it was like
a Kansas.
I think it was Wichita.
Anyway, it's not that important.
But, yeah.
Right? And that's where like they have casual conversation. Like, it's almost kind of like a Socratic method. It's almost like he's already trying to be her teacher.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you think he skins them? It's like, yeah, most serial kills keep trophies of their victims. And she's like, you didn't. So he's like, I didn't. She's like,
well,
I love the line. He's like, no, you ate yours. This is very fun. Yeah,
he turned his into poo.
I was gonna say, who knows? Maybe he actually had a little poop garden.
used his victims to fertilize his garden.
And then he ate them again and pooped them again. It's just one big cycle. So finally he's like, okay, you send that through. And that's when, again, now we see that, okay, yeah, they do have an old, drawer that can go back and forth to send things through. And he picks it up, he looks through it. He's like, oh, we thought you could dissect me with this. He's like, I just want your knowledge. Right? And he's like, oh, you're ambitious. And then he just really dissects her. He's like, I guess I can kind of go briefly through what he says. He's like, oh, you look like with that good bag and your cheap shoes, you look like a rube. Well scrubbed, hustling rube with a little taste. Good nutrition is giving you some length of bone, but you're not more than one generation of poor white trash. That accent you try to so desperately shed is pure West Virginia. Was your daddy a coal miner? He talks about boys, like fondling her in the backs of cars, and all she can think about is getting away, all the way to the FBI. And again, but she's not fazed by any of this. Like, you can tell it hits her, but like she has a nice she sells a good poker face.
She has a great poker face, yeah.
Right. And I love how he's like, and then she tries to like get back at him herself. It's like, oh, you see a lot, Dr. Lecter, but you're strong enough to point that at yourself, to look at yourself and write down the truth. And then she's like, or maybe you're afraid one, right? And then he sends the thing back and slams it shut.
Yeah.
Right. And I love this part because she flinches here. It's like a slap in the face.
Yep. Yep.
So, like, now she has been rattled a bit.
Yep. So she grabs the questionnaire out of the drawer.
And she's like, you go, fly away now.
And she goes to walk back to the little security area. And as she's walking by Miggs' cell, now he's naked.
Oh, wait, 1 second. No, not yet. We forgot the most key part. Right? And, she picks up, it's like, finally she's like, she picks it up, it's like, she's about to, like, she's making sure she's not going to, like, fill it out. It's like, a census taker once tried to fool me.
A census taker once with fava beans and a nice chianti.
And then I could
yeah. A census taker once tried to pull me. I ate his liver with fava beans and a nice chianti.
Which,
like he gets right up against the glass for that one.
Oh yeah, no, he's standing there, and he's meaning business now. And it's funny because we actually it was a few weeks ago when we did Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah,
I'd like to eat her liver with fava beans.
Yeah.
They should leave her alone. I heard they found her liver in the mailbox. Anyway.
Yeah, so she turns to go back over to the security area, and as she's walking by Miggs' cell, Miggs is now naked, laying on his cot that's in there, and he's doing something. And he's kind of curled up in the fetal position, facing the wall, and as she walks by, he kind of looks up and throws something at her. Hits her right in the face.
It's
yeah.
Man seed.
Yeah. throw some semen at her. And
I love how the first guy, the first cell at the very end, understands what happens. He just yells, "Biggs, you stupid fuck." And then now Hannibal starts calling her name back out. He's like, "Agent Starling! Agent Starling!" And now he has something for her. Again, he does not like the uncouthness.
Yeah.
So he's going to give her something.
Yep.
That's not.
But she doesn't stop to turn around. She keeps going, but he's sort of yelling toward her.
Yeah.
Sort of yelling to her from his cell.
So she goes back. She's like, "I would not have had it happen to you. This courtesy is unspeakably ugly to me," right? And she's like, "Please do this test." It's like, "No, but I will make you happy. I'll give you a chance for what you love." It's like, advancement. It's like, "Go see Miss Moffat, an old patient of mine." And then he spells Moffat, right?
M-O-F-E-T.
Because exactly. 1 F, not 2.
Yeah. Yep. You hear Moffat, you think 2.
Yep. But it's 1 F.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then, so she goes back, she gets out of the hospital and
she gets to her car and she just starts crying.
She starts crying. And, as she's walking to the car too, she's also having like this memory of her being probably about 10.
Yeah.
And she's walking out of the house. Her dad pulls up in a car,
in a police car. Yep.
He's gotten home from work and she yells, "Daddy!" Right? And then, you see her at her car and she's just bawling.
Mm-hmm.
She's breaking down. It's by the way, she drives a Pinto.
Yeah. She drives a Pinto.
I would love for a movie to be made today where a movie that takes place today, 2025, where the character drives a Pinto.
Yeah. That'd be great. Or a Gremlin.
Yeah. Like in the early 90s.
Although you see more Gremlins in movies than you do Pintos, so
that's true.
Maybe a Pinto would be better.
So, if you're on the younger side and you have no idea what a Pinto is, Google Pinto.
Yep. Yep, and after you get through all the horse pictures, you might get to a couple cars.
Yep. So anyway, we cut back. She's back at the academy and she's doing some training, right? And then after the training, she's going on some microfilm and she's looking through old newspaper clippings about Hannibal Lecter. Mm-hmm. She's trying to search about Moffat.
Trying to find Moffat, yeah. Trying to find Miss Moffat.
And then she hears she's got a call from Crawford. And she answers it. And he tells her that Miggs is dead. And she's like, "What? Seriously?" It's like, "Yeah, no. The orderly heard Lecter talking to him. And he ended up biting off his tongue and swallowing it."
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to know.
Yep. What did he say?
What did Lecter say to him?
Yeah.
Again, they're not showing a lot. They're telling you a lot. And letting you fill in the gaps.
Yep.
Because, you're thinking about, okay, how is this conversation going on where Lecter is talking to Miggs? And what's he saying? Where all of a sudden Miggs is like, "I'm going to just bite on my tongue hard enough."
Especially since they're 2 cells away from each other.
Yes.
There's a cell between them. So he can't just be whispering through the wall to him.
Said something. And I just can't think how hard you got to bite down to bite off your own tongue. And then instead of pulling it out of your mouth, you swallow it.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you can have a lot of blood also that's happening.
Yeah.
But still. Anyhow. So it's don't worry, this is not your fault. Right? And so then they go back into their, it's like, I heard he said, a name. Moffat, and like and well, I couldn't find anything about Moffat. But I thought the yourself was too hokey.
Yeah, because she was saying that all of his records were destroyed. All of his old patient records were destroyed, so she couldn't find anything about on Moffat.
And that's why she's going also through that's why she ended up going through all the old newspapers to see if there was any mention there.
So and the way that he said yourself, she thought that was a clue, so she was looking up and found a storage facility called Yourself Storage.
Yes. Which, by the way, there is actually a small chain of storage facilities around Baltimore called Yourself Storage. So okay. I guess they based it off of that.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Yeah. All right. And then, so it's like, and it's, and she's like, it's, just outside downtown Baltimore, not far from where his, doctor's office used to be. So she takes the drive back up to Baltimore, and it's now nighttime, and she has her Pinto outside the storage facility, right? And it's one of those ones, like a drive up like garage one. It's not one of the indoor ones.
Yeah.
And there's a nice man there, the owner of the storage facility,
the proprietor of the storage facility, and he's trying to unlock the padlock that's on there, but he can't get it unlocked.
Yes. Right. And I assume they must have gotten the warrant.
No. He's not trying to unlock it. They're trying to just open it. They've got the lock off of there, but the latch is stuck.
It's stuck because no one's used it in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Or close to.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like he says
10,
right away
years.
that like, oh yeah, but you say like they paid the entire thing for a certain amount of time in full.
Yeah.
Right. So they leased it out, but they paid in full the entire term.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's discovered.
And it was leased to a Miss Moffat. Yeah.
Right. A Miss Hester Moffat. Right. So, and she's saying, and as far as he knows, like no one's been in there in years. Right. So, and then, still having trouble. And it's like, oh, perhaps tomorrow you can come with my son. He can help.
And she's like, well, kind of got to do this tonight.
Car, she sees a driver. He's like, how about your driver? He's like, he detests physical feats.
Yeah.
Or something like that. He looks like a grumpy dude. I would not want it.
The owner of this place, the proprietor, he's a very nice guy. He's a very nice guy. Very nice guy, trying to be as helpful as he can. But yeah, his driver, he detests physical labor.
I wouldn't want to. Hey, I would not mess with that dude.
Yeah. But so
she gets a thought because remember she's from West Virginia, which like wasn't really confirmed by her, explicitly when Hannibal did that. But she's from West Virginia. She knows her way around, different how to do certain things. And she goes out, she gets her jack, and she jacks up the door just far enough for her to slide under it.
Yep.
But, as she's doing that, she gives the number to the field office in Baltimore.
Yeah. So just in case the jack falls down, the door closes, call them and they'll send somebody to help.
Meanwhile, there's an old nail. It's on the bottom.
Yeah.
She cuts herself on it.
She cuts her leg on it as she's climbing under. Right.
And then she gets under, and it's a huge storage place there, right? It's not one of the smaller ones. It's a large one.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
She's looking around, it's all different types of odds and ends, and it's really great set decoration here.
Yeah.
It's creepy. There's a stuffed owl with its wings out, and all these other things.
A lot of stuff that you'd find in if in a movie where they're going and exploring an old rundown Victorian home.
Yeah. Just like that.
You got these weird old style lamps and all this just older stuff that, like, turn of the century type stuff, turn of the 20th century type stuff. And yeah, just stuff
finally,
from decades earlier.
Yeah, it's really an odd collection of things. And she finally goes around and she sees what's obviously a car, but it's draped by this massive American flag.
Yeah.
And she takes it off, and it's a Packard. Right? And so she opens the door, and she's going in. And again, there's like a headless mannequin in here, and other little odds and ends also. Again, it's the same type of thing that you were just talking about. Like, again, this is just unsettling.
Oh, and that's right. Because the rest of the place, there were mannequins all over this place too.
That's right.
Yeah, it wasn't just the stuff. There were mannequins all over the place.
And isn't there like a thought there was like a record player in there, and
and there was an old record player in there, and there was and this headless mannequin that's in the car is an address.
Yes.
And there's this across from the mannequin, there's something that's covered.
Yep. It's got a little thing that's covered over, and it looks like it's like a type of like globe vase or something like that, right? Something that you might have a cover, glass cover that you take off of it, right? But it's covered in some type of drape.
Yeah, so she pulls a drape off of it.
Slowly takes it off, and there's a severed head.
Yeah, it's a head in a jar, and the head is it's a man's head, and he's wearing makeup and got like earrings in and all this. It's clearly the head of a crossdresser.
Yes, he's also clearly dead.
Well, obviously.
Right. And so after this, apparently the door didn't fall, so she's able to get back under and get back in her Pinto and drive back to see Hannibal Lecter. And Barney meets her outside. It's raining. He's so polite to be there outside. Get the umbrella, bring her in.
Yeah.
Right. Goes down, and she's down there now. She's just sitting on the floor this time, and it's like his cell is like dark, right?
Yeah.
But there's a TV that's set up, and it's like the 700 Club is on.
Yeah. And his drawings are nowhere to be found.
Yep.
The drawings that were all over the walls of his cell before are not there anymore.
Right, and then she just, and right now the TV, I like the touch of the TV because it's on mute. Like, obviously they turned it off for her, right? And we find out later, like, when you leave, they're going to turn it back up to annoy the hell out of me.
Yep.
Right?
It's like, my punishment for Migs.
Hey, we didn't like the guy. I killed him. You got to watch the 700 Club.
And you don't get your fancy artwork that you drew yourself in yourself.
That's more of the actual punishment, is taking away the artwork.
Yeah.
Which is a bad idea. I think now, he didn't like Chilton before. Now he's really angry at Chilton.
Yeah. So.
And that's what she said. Oh, that's an anagram, isn't it, Dr. Hester Moffat? The rest of me, miss the rest of me, meaning you been at the garage. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like it. Probably like, the little food carrier there, right? The drawer kind of pops out, right? And she kind of jumps, right? And she looks in. There's a nicely folded towel.
Yeah. And so she takes it out. She, starts drying off her hair.
And I love it. I love it. She's like, thank you. And it's crazy. It's like, your bleeding has stopped. She's like, what? Oh, that was just a scratch. Yeah. He's like, I'm not talking about from there.
Starting to sound like Migs there.
And then finally he's like, why don't you ask me about Buffalo Bill? Well, actually, no. First, no. She asks him more about the head first.
Yeah. Ask about the head in the jar.
He's like, why don't you ask about me about Buffalo Bill instead? He's like, well, do you just know something? It's like, well, if I get the case file, maybe. Right? And then this is kind of where they start really doing the quid pro quo. It's like, well, why don't you tell me about Miss Moffat? You want me to find him.
Yeah.
And then he feels like, well, his real name was Benjamin Raspel, a former patient of mine. I love how he's just like, whose romantic attachments kind of trended towards the exotic. I love the next, like, I didn't kill him, I assure you. Merely tucked him away as I found him. Tucked him away. It's like, it's like maybe, some old family jewelry that's valuable that you want to keep in a safe place.
That head in a jar.
He's like, after he missed 3 appointments. And I love how the next slide. It's like, well, who killed him? Like, who can say? Best thing for him. His therapy was going nowhere. And I love he's like, well, and finally she's like, well, he's probably a transvestite, right? It's like, no, he's just a manic depressive. He was very boring. And then that's when he kind of getting into the connection with Buffalo Bill. Where it's like, he was probably fledgling Cleo's first effort at transformation.
Yeah.
It's like, how did he feel when he saw him, Clarice? I love her answer. It's like, scared at first, and then exhilarated. So, that's when finally it's like they got into the conversation. It's like, well, Jack Crawford's happy in your career, isn't he? Because like he realized like this is, he's a smart, he's a astute guy. Like, tracking down notorious serial killer. They have no idea who he is. While talking to one of the most famous serial killers, tends to be good for someone's career when they're just a student.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit.
And I love. He's like, and apparently he likes you. Do you like him too? It's like, I don't know. I don't really think about that. And then Lecter's like, that's the first lie to me, Clarice. Which, of course, it's a lie. Everybody knows that. Everyone always is thinking about how people might be thinking about that about them.
Yep.
Especially chicks. I love the things like, do you think Crawford wants you sexually? He's, he is much older, but do you think he visualizes scenarios, exchanges, fucking you? And then Clarice is like, I really don't think about it. And to be honest, it sounds like something Biggs would say. I love the line. Not anymore.
And this whole time, so the voice that Anthony Hopkins, did for Hannibal Lecter is so creepy. Yeah.
It's not like anything else he's done. It's terrific. And it's funny. It could have easily been something else like he would lean too heavily into later in his career, but he doesn't. Because he's such a brilliant actor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a movie with him where he does even a similar voice to this.
No.
Where he wasn't playing Hannibal Lecter.
No. Definitely didn't do it in Thor.
No. Definitely didn't do it in Meet Joe Black. But yeah, it's a creepy voice that just fits so well with the character.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually now when after this, where he starts talking about like, well, Crawford has something he might be able to give me. And what he's thinking about is not being in that cell.
Yeah, he wants a view.
But what we first see now is like that all the lights actually go on now, and now Clarice can see that the cell's been stripped. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just even the drawings. Like it's like the mattress.
Yeah.
I think they even took his toilet seat off.
Yeah.
Right. He's got to truly squat.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, yeah, Chilton enjoys his petty torments. And then Clues gets back to the matter at hand. Like, what do we mean by transformation? Right. And Lecter's like, no, we're not doing that yet. I'm talking about what I want to talk about right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want a view.
Yeah.
I can see a tree.
Yeah. All he wants to do is see a tree. He doesn't need some fancy, like, oceanside cell. He just wants to be able to look out the window and see a tree.
Hey, I don't blame him. Sometimes birds land on trees.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a squirrel, a chipmunk.
Yeah.
A kid climbing up the tree to say hi.
Yeah.
To Hannibal the Cannibal.
Sometimes the lightning strikes a tree.
And, and also, he wants to be away from Chilton.
Yeah.
In a federal institution. Right? And then, she's trying to get back. It's like, you said fledgling killer. Like, has he killed again? He's like, I'm offering a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill based on the case evidence, and I'll help you catch him. Right? And then she immediately realized, like, he knows who he is. He already knows who the killer is.
Yeah.
It's like, just tell me. And of course, he's not having it. Like, he's got to play this game.
Yeah.
He's like, all good things to those who wait. And part of it's like, you know what? They're going to find out who it is. You can do this. I believe in you, Clarice. You can figure out who the killer is. I'm not going to tell you. I can help you. I'll help you, I'll lead you away like Socrates. I'll lead you like Socrates, going question and answer.
He's not going to help her cheat. He's not going to give her the answers.
That's right.
He's going to help her find out the answers herself.
If other people die, okay. But she found out herself who the killer is. Mm-hmm. And then she can be proud of herself instead of just being told the answer.
Yep.
I love how it's like, I've waited, Clarice. How long can you and Jack? Our Billy must already be searching for that next special lady. And Clarice, it's like, Clarice, we're going to be partners. And it cuts. Now it's Memphis. And Tom Petty's on the radio.
Yep. And we get a girl driving. Catherine Martin, played by Brooke Smith.
Singing to Tom Petty, American Girl.
Yeah.
And, I can listen to this song and not be fazed. I know some people can't because they just think about poor Catherine Martin listening to American Girl.
Yep.
So she's also youngish, like Clarice, right?
Yeah.
And she, she pulls into the parking lot, and then as she's pulling in, there's a guy with night vision goggles on.
Yep, watching. And she pulls into the parking lot, an apartment building parking lot.
Yep. And she has a grocery store bag. She gets out, and she looks up. There's a cat.
There's a cat in the window.
Says hi to the cat that's up in the window. It's like it's like a 2 or 3 story apartment building.
Yeah. And isn't that that's her cat, all right? Because that's her apartment up there, and it's up there in the window greeting her. As much as a cat's going to greet somebody. But yeah, so, and there's a van that's parked, sort of across from where she parked.
Yes. And now we don't have anyone with night vision goggles on.
No, but there is somebody that's coming out from, the woods area there. Because there's trees and stuff along the edge of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right next to where the van is parked. And
feels like a usual type of apartment building, apartment complex.
Yeah, so there's a guy that's got a big chair, and he's trying to he's struggling to carry it over toward the van.
He's got a cast on one arm. He's just dragging it with the other arm.
Yeah, and he's clearly trying to put on a show on how difficult it is to get this chair over to the van.
I'm sorry, Catherine.
You walked right into this one, Catherine.
every red flag is going up.
Yeah, and so she's trying to be a nice person, and she wants to go help the guy because she sees he's struggling.
It's like, oh yes, I'm trying to get it up in that van.
So
okay, it's it's not the middle of the night,
and it's also it's a windowless van.
Yes. It's not the Mystery Machine.
No, it's not.
It is a Mystery Machine, but
it's not the Mystery Machine.
But and again, it's probably, I would, it's not like 2:00 in the morning. It looks like it's probably something
probably like
9,
10 o'clock
at night. So again,
the sun's down, but it's
not. What are you doing?
The sun's down, but it's not like super late.
It's late enough to be confused about why one single person is trying to get a chair into a windowless van.
Yeah.
With a cast on.
Yeah.
Okay. The second question, she lives at this apartment complex.
Mm-hmm. So
she's never seen this van
automatically
before.
Should be odd to her.
This is a windowless van. This is not a Toyota Corolla.
No. This is a windowless van, and so she helps him lift it up and get one side of it up in the van.
And she gets in the van first.
No, because he asked her to. He's like, so why don't you go ahead and get up there, and then you can pull, and I'll push it, and we'll get it in. And she climbs up there, puts the chair between herself and him.
Hey, we don't. Okay. Sorry, we're not trying to victim blame. Sorry.
No, we're not. We're not. We're putting it out there. Folks who are listening. If
got a heart of gold,
this kind of thing happens in your vicinity,
and guess what?
Try to spot the red flags.
I've done stupid things too, so where I should have been more aware of what the situation is.
Yeah, it happens to everybody. Hopefully, this bad of thing doesn't happen to everybody.
That's right. Anyhow, there are red flags. Like the movie, it's even referenced in like a later movie. Like I've seen Silence of the Lambs.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I know this trick. But then later, Catherine does some smart stuff later, so we'll get to that. But
yeah,
but yeah, so it's between them, and then finally she's like, "Hey, aren't you about a size 14?"
Yeah,
she's like, "What?"
And then he shoves the chair. Shoves the chair into her to knock her down, and then climbs up into the back of the van.
Also, something that we don't actually see.
Mm-hmm.
Camera's on the outside of the van. The doors are open.
Yep.
You can kind of see the backside of Buffalo Bill or Ted Levine, and he shoves it like you said. And again,
we don't see what happens inside the van, but we see him climb up in there, and then we hear it. We hear a bang. We just hear it
She's she gets knocked out, right? And then he looks at her dress, sees the size, he's like, yes. And then he kind of cuts her dress or blouse. And you have her bare back, and he's like, "Oh, it's perfect," right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's odd about this is like he still has the doors open when he's doing this. This is also a bad move on his because
yes,
Eddie
he should have closed. If he didn't want people to see him, he should have closed the doors. So,
and then he kind of, he looks both ways out the back, right? Closes the doors, and then he drops the blouse or the top, the dress, whatever it is, in the parking lot as he leaves, with his DNA on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least his fingerprints on it. May not have DNA on it, but today it's with technology, it's much easier to find trace DNA than it was 30 years ago. Anyhow, he drives off. And poor Catherine's now in the back of the van.
Yeah, and then we don't really find out what is happening with her just yet.
No, not yet. We don't realize that she's also kind of an important person.
Yeah, her mother is a very important person.
So we're not there yet, though. We won't jump ahead. So
yeah.
And now then, So yeah, now we cut back, and she's kind of walking down, cut back to the academy.
Yeah,
and
Clarice.
She's kind of walking down the hallway, and she gives a high five to her roommate, who Ardelia Mapp, who shows up every once in a while in this movie, who I feel like probably had a bigger role in the book.
Yeah,
because she gets a few lines here and there, and we see her in probably 4 or 5 scenes, but it gets like 2 or 3 lines at the most.
Yeah,
and no more than like 15 or 20 seconds of screen time in each of them. So, she went on to direct a few movies though. Anyway, so then we cut to the we hear that she's gonna be that they found her the body. They're going to West Virginia, right? They kind of cut to a scene within the campus there where they kind of stage like, okay, what do you do in a situation where you're chasing like a perpetrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get out of the car, right? And you gotta that whole type of thing. So we cut back now that she's gonna go to where they said they found it in West Virginia. That's right. They found another body in West Virginia.
Yeah.
So, she's on a plane ride, and they go to kind of Elk River, West Virginia. That's what it was. And it looks like it's another Buffalo Bill type of situation. Right? So, she gets there, she meets up with Crawford, and they're driving in the car towards basically it's a funeral home. Again, it's a small county in the middle of West Virginia. They probably don't have a full medical examiner's office because this type of thing just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so
I don't think we mentioned though that each of Buffalo Bill's victims was found skinned.
Yes. We did not actually mention that. That's true. Thank you.
Which is important later.
It is very, very important. Very important later.
Yeah.
So she's back. She meets up with Crawford, and they're in our car. They're going, like I said, to essentially it's the funeral home. They're gonna there. That's where they had the body. And they're kind of going through Buffalo Bill's process. He starves them for 3 days, then shoots them in the head, and then he skins them.
Yeah,
and then he dumps the body. Essentially,
yeah,
that's basically his process, his MO, right? And then Crawford then it kind of quizzes her as about the general profile of him, right? And so and then he's looking at the photo. This is actually that's a photo of Frederica Bimmel, the first one.
Yeah,
right?
The first victim, who was actually the third one found.
The third one, because she's the only one he bothered to weight the body down, right?
Yeah.
So the body didn't pop up
float up to the top of the river. It stayed down.
Yeah. But eventually, the body will bloat.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how much weight you have, it's not going to matter. So, as Crawford said, he just got lazy, right? So, so this new one, they washed up, and they're just having kind of a casual conversation. He's like, well, he's a white male because serial killers tend to hunt with their ethnic group. And he's not a drifter because, again, he skins them. So what he does has to take, and because it's 3 days, it takes time and precision to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs privacy to do that. It's not like one of these truck drivers that will just kill people from truck stop to truck stop that can easily dump a body and just move along, right?
Yeah.
And Crawford's impressed, and then finally he's like, and she's like, yeah, he's not going to stop now because he's got a real taste for this, and because he might need multiple outfits.
Yeah.
But yeah, Crawford's impressed, and they
and so when they're examining the body,
right? So they get there, they get to the funeral home.
Yeah.
Well, before that, they get there, and again, it's like all these like backcountry cops in West Virginia, right? And there's the sheriff, and first Crawford pulls the sheriff aside to talk in private, and they leave Clarice alone in front of all these cops and just kind of staring at her, right?
Yeah,
and it's kind of like she's from West Virginia, and she's made it further than they have.
Yep.
Anyway, and that's when they pull back to the examining room, and there's still a bunch of dudes in there, and Clarice is like, I'm sure her family would be really happy for all the work you've done, but please leave.
Yeah.
and so now it's just, I guess basically it's like I don't know if it's the proprietor of the funeral home.
I think it's the medical examiner.
The county coroner.
Yeah.
I think it's like the county coroner. And it's like, it's Clarice, Crawford, and then like there's one other agent they came with from the FBI that's going to kind of like photograph and document all these things. So, they pull off, the drape, and there's the body, and you could see that where the body's been skinned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's just going through, recording what she's seen, and then they finally, flip the body over. Actually, you know what? There's 5 people in it. That's right, because there's 2 people from West Virginia. There's the older guy and the younger guy.
Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, so they're going all through it, and then they flip the body over, and then you can kind of see like something's been cut in the mouth. And you can tell the guys, like the medical examiner, is like, oh yeah, sometimes bodies, when they come back up, like stuff gets cut, whether it be like mud or branches or stuff, right?
Yeah, because if they're underwater,
they pull out with tweezers, and there's a cocoon, a moth cocoon.
Yeah, and there's no way that could have been caught up in the mouth.
Yeah,
when it's underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So
they leave, and then they just continue talking. Crawford's like, you were kind of angry when they told you to like wait while I talk to the sheriff, right? So anyway, it gets to the next scene, and now there's a dinosaur. There's dinosaur bones. There's a dinosaur in this movie.
There's a dinosaur in this movie.
So she's going to a museum because she knows some people know all about bugs.
Mm-hmm.
She knows some entomologists.
Yep, she knows some entomologists. So she takes the cocoon to them.
Yep. And by the way, this I mentioned dinosaur. This is filmed at the Natural History Museum in Pittsburgh.
Okay,
is where this scene was filmed. So we talked earlier about how they used a lot of areas around Pittsburgh that filmed this movie, and here's a very good example of this. Yeah.
So they cut open the.
Well, I like this because these guys remind me of the lone gunmen from the X-Files.
Yes. I didn't even think of that when I was watching it, but yes, absolutely, they do.
If you have not watched the X-Files, please
check it out. It's a great show.
Watch the X-Files.
Oh yeah, it's a great show.
So, but they cut it open, and they realize it's the Death's Head moth.
Yes, the Death's Head hawk moth. And so, interesting thing about the Death's Head hawk moth. So they show it. It's got sort of a skull looking thing on its back.
Yes.
Right. So in the poster for the movie. You've got
iconic poster.
Yeah, the iconic poster. You got Jodie Foster's face, and then over her mouth is this moth with a skull on its back.
Right.
Now the on the poster, and the one in the movie looks a little bit different than on the poster.
It does.
Because on the poster, so the pattern on the back of the Death's Head hawk moth is actually Salvador Dali's The Voluptas Mors.
Oh, interesting.
Which it's 7 naked women that are arranged in the shape of a skull.
Okay.
It's also very similar to the poster for The Descent.
Yes.
One of the posters for The Descent. It's that same style of a thing. But yeah, on the back of the moth, it's on the poster. It's actually a recreation of the voluptus moss or mons or mors. Voluptus mors.
That makes a lot of sense. Salvador Dali like fits the entire aesthetic of this movie, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, in voluptus mors. Yeah. In
so
voluptus
they
mors.
discovered that.
Yeah. So yeah, they discover that this is not a moth that's found just anywhere.
Right. Which is actually, it's a key clue for the investigation, to be honest, because I mean,
yeah,
rare bugs. Yeah. That just you have leads. Leads?
Leads.
Are you gonna find these guys?
Listen to our Big Lebowski episode, folks.
I was really not counting on.
I was not either.
Bringing out the Big Lebowski.
I was not either. But it happened.
So this is when now we find out who Martin is, right? We go back at the training, headquarters there, and you have a bunch of the trainees there, and they're kind of in a lounge area, and the TV's on. There's news, and there's Senator Martin, whose daughter was recently kidnapped, and they believe that Buffalo Bill is the one that kidnapped her.
Yes,
because she's big. Her dress was found close to the thing. So anyway, and her mom's the junior senator from Tennessee.
Yes,
and she keeps talking about, just keeps using her daughter's name over and over and over again. And this is where, like, one of the few lines Ardelia has, how like she includes talking about, it's like, oh, that's very smart. She's using her name. She's humanizing her. And it's like, it makes it harder to kill her.
Yeah.
I don't think Buffalo Bill cares about that.
I highly doubt that Buffalo Bill cares how much somebody tries to humanize his victims.
So, or before that, is that when we had the scene where I thought there was a scene where we finally find like her like in like the pit? Is that yet? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. Have we seen her in the pit yet?
I'm trying to quickly go through the screenplay. I gotta probably have it on my notes. I just look at my notes, but not looking at my notes. Let's see. By the way, that was the other thing. We got to talk about how the entomologists for like the lone gunmen. One of them wants to go out for cheeseburgers with her.
Yeah.
He's much nicer about it than Chilton. Chilton's like, this can be a fun town. And the guy's like, let's just get cheeseburgers. Like,
yep.
Doesn't have to be anything else but cheeseburgers. It might later lead to coitus, but for right now, cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers for now.
No, yeah, we don't see it yet.
Okay.
I want to say it's after this, because again, like there's very few Buffalo Bill scenes for quite a while in all of this. Yeah,
I mean, Buffalo Bill really doesn't have a whole lot more screen time than Lecter.
No,
in this movie.
He doesn't, and it's kind of different in a lot of ways. So let's see what we got here. I want to look at my notes real quick here.
All right.
Yeah, we do see it. Sorry. So yeah, we see the death's head. We do see the little basement of horrors, kind of amongst all this, right? And we have Martin, she's down in there, and she's screaming for help and all this, and he's just kind of we don't see a whole lot. We see the backside of Buffalo Bill, and we see his butt crack.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's painting something, and that's about it. And this is a big basement.
Yeah, basically there's a well in the middle of it,
and in the middle of it, I like how they kind of don't understand how all of it's laid out, because like it becomes a maze later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a well.
Yeah, there's like the main room of this basement is there's what looks like a well. It's really just a pit, and it's got the stones coming up like a well.
Yep. And she's just screaming.
Yeah, so she's in the bottom of this pit.
And for now, that's all we see. There'll be a few more scenes later, but at the first time, we just kind of get a layout. We see she's being held in this pit or well, and that's it. Right? And that's when we kind of cut back to, we're back at the hospital. And, Chilton's pissed off that Clarice is back. Like, this is my patient. Like, what are you doing? Right? So, but they, she's got a pass. They've talked with the senator to, say she can speak with him and has right to talk with him about certain aspects, right? Especially now that senator's daughter is involved.
Yeah.
Right. So, and she presents a deal, right? About how if it leads to the arrest of Buffalo Bill, you can have your own, you'll be transferred out of here, and one day a year for 1 hour, you can walk on a beach under swap supervision. You can swim in the ocean. Right? So, and it was a Plum Island Animal Research Sanctuary is what it's called.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're going back and forth. They do their quid pro quo too, right? So it's like, tell me about Miss West Virginia. So the new body they found, like, was she big? It's like, she's like, yes. It's like, yeah, well, they all were. Like, what else? And that's when she said, oh, there was an insect that was deliberately inserted into her throat, right? And then Lecter's like, well, was it a butterfly? And it's like, no, a moth. Like, how do you know? Right? And that's when she kind of presents the offer they have. Right? Again, like, Buffalo Bill. I mean, not Buffalo Bill. Lecter's smart. Like, of course he's going to predict the moth.
Yeah.
Understanding, like, if something was deliberately placed there and this guy wants to transform, what do moths do? They transform. Praying mantises don't transform. So, I like that. So, and finally, it's like, she's like, well, if I help you, Clarice, will you tell me things too? Quid pro quo. Right?
Yeah.
Like, Catherine's waiting. TikTok. And it's like, all right, let's go ahead. And this is where now we're going to get to the origin
of the title of the
movie's title.
Yeah. So she, so she tells him a story about her when she was a kid, because her father her father died when she was young.
Like we said, he was a town marshal, wasn't like the sheriff, but essentially it's kind of what he was like. Was the the lead deputy or sheriff of it's a small town, so he was killed.
Yeah, he was killed when she was young, so she went to live with her aunt and uncle.
Yeah,
and they had a farm.
Her mother died earlier.
Yeah, her mother died when she was real young. Then her dad raised her until he was killed, and then so she was taken to live with her aunt and uncle on a farm, and they had sheep. And she had mentioned before that she had run away when she was young.
Right. So, but then it kind of stops, because then they go, like, she gets tired, they're going back and forth. They don't go all at one time. They fragment it up. So then he's like, okay, well, the significance of the moth is change. Right? Caterpillar into cocoon into beauty. Billy wants to change too. But there's when he's like, it's like, the problem is, like, he's not a woman. Yeah. So he needs to kill the bigger woman to be able to have the change.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, he wants to make a woman's suit, a skin suit, so that he can, be a woman.
And then finally she's like, well, there's no correlation between transsexuals and violence. And he's like, yeah, you're right. You're kind of close to how you're going to catch, but you don't know. She's like, well, well, tell me why. And he's like, it's back to her. It's like, It's like, yeah, well, yeah, I had to go live with my aunt and uncle, and they had the sheep farm, and right, and like
one night, I was woken up by this screaming. This just, it sounded like a child was being hurt. Just this screaming. And so she got out of bed. She went out to the barn.
And then she saw they're slaughtering the lambs. So, and before she can continue, then she's like, quid pro quo doctor.
Because, I don't know if anybody who's listening here has ever heard a lamb scream. It sounds just like a child.
Yes. It is true. So, yeah. So it's like, well, it's like, well, Billy's not a real transsexual, but he thinks he is, and he tries to be. He tries to be a lot of things, I expect, which is basically true. And he's like, there are 3 major centers this is 1991, so for surgery: John Hopkins, University of Minnesota, and Columbus Medical Center. He's like, he probably has applied at one or all of them and was rejected. And he's like, why would they reject him? It's like, oh, the personality test. You wouldn't test like for real, right? And then she kind of gets into like, how, I guess no, she doesn't get into the full story yet. Yeah, because the rest of the story comes later. So meanwhile, we see a scene where Chilton is listening in on this entire conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And it kind of ends there, right? Because, it's like next, I was like, do tell me, about the rest of the story, right? Yeah. So then, I'm sorry. So finally, now we do cut back finally to Catherine, and she's screaming. She's like, "Please, please!" Right? Obviously she's not happy. And we get a nice shot of Buffalo Bill and sitting there.
And Catherine's got a bottle of lotion in her hands.
And he has no patience to hear the pleas. All he has to say is,
it puts the lotion on its skin.
Oh, else it gets the hose again.
Yeah.
And finally, like, she thinks, right? I mean, I get it. She thinks she's been kidnapped because of who her mom is.
Yeah.
And like, David, like, what pay the ransom? And he's like, it rubs the lotion on its skin.
It rubs the lotion on
the hose again.
It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. Now, it's interesting that he's saying it rubs the lotion.
Yes.
I agree with this. He's not seeing her as a person.
No. He's seeing a dress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
He's holding Precious also, by the way.
Yes, he is holding Precious, his little poodle.
He talks to Precious like, "Oh, Precious."
His little poodle.
Anyway.
Precious.
Little miniature poodle.
Played by Darla.
So, and then we got back to Lecter's cell, and Chilton's talking, and they have Lecter in a straitjacket, and he's got a little mask squishing his nose.
He's got like a half mask on that's covering up his mouth and nose.
I can see. Yeah, that we see later.
Yeah, this is like a wire one.
Yeah, and they have him standing up, in the straitjacket, like on a, there's a backboard behind them also, right? It's like, no, there was never any deal. I talked with Senator Martin. It's like, I can get you a deal now, right? And we're going to have you transferred to Brushy Mountain State Prison in Tennessee. And then, he's like, what is his name? Answer me, Hannibal. And I love, meanwhile, while he's kind of screaming at this, Chilton left his pen on the bed.
Yep.
On his cot. And you see him eyeing the pen. And it's very clear he's eyeing the pen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then all he says is like, his first name is Lewis, and I'll tell the rest to the senator herself, but only in Tennessee. Right? Then the next thing we get is like the FBI director on the phone with Crawford screaming at him about this fake deal, and like the senator's angry. It's like, and Crawford's like, I had to try something.
FBI director played by Roger Corman, by the way.
Yes. Which apparently that office was the office of Elizabeth Dole.
Huh. Okay.
Wife of Bob Dole.
Yeah.
Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
That's a throwback right there. So right, you get the shot. You get now you get a shot in Memphis. It's at the airport, and you have all these cop cars and pulling up to the plane. This private plane that flew down to Memphis, and they get him out. And you even have you have a cop there, and they get him out, and it's Lieutenant Boyle.
Yeah, Charles Napier.
It's like, yep. It's like, if you cooperate, it'll be quick, and you'll get 3 hots in a cot. Right?
Yep.
So, we get the scene then where, you have Chilton, and you got the senator, you got the senator's aide, you got all these cops, right? And they're talking, and this time now Hannibal has the iconic.
Now he has the iconic mask.
And again, he's kind of like on a backboard, but they have it, on like a truck dolly type of thing, right?
Yeah, he's on a dolly. And
so
he's in a straight jacket, he's strapped to it.
They roll him. Right. So, and they pull up, and they're having brief conversation, and so they kind of cut to the chase pretty quickly, right? It's like Sherman was like, I brought an affidavit giving to you new rights. I was like, do you want to read it before I sign it? He's like, I'm not going to waste your time or Catherine's bargaining for this. Clarice and that awful Jack Crawford have already wasted too much time. Right? Only pray they haven't doomed the poor girl. I love how he plays it. He's like, he's trying to seem altruistic and angry at them. He's had the name the entire time.
Yep.
Anyway. He's like, his real name is Louis Friend.
Yes, Louis Friend.
He was referred to me in April by my patient, Benjamin Raspel. They were lovers. But Raspel was very frightened. Apparently, Louis murdered the transient and done things with his skin. And I love Morton's face. She looks away, right? Mm-hmm. She's a proper Southern woman, right? That's not going to think of such things. And like, what we need is a dress. And then, again, quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Did you nurse Catherine? All of a sudden, she's like, what? I love how he just goes like, did you breastfeed her? Make it more obvious.
Yeah.
She's like, yes. I love how, like, even in The Mask, he just kind of does a little, like, flicking of his tongue while he's talking about it. little details.
Yeah, little details.
I love it.
Little details.
And I love her. It's like he's about to say, "You son of a bitch," right? And the senator, because she's a proper Southern woman, is like, "Yes, I did."
Yep.
And then he's like, instead of going back, he's still in the conversation. Like, it toughened your nipples, didn't it? And then I love how she's like, "Get this monster back to Baltimore." And then he goes into all the details about Louis Friend.
Yep.
Right. And I guess that's enough because they're ready to sign it, right? It's like, if there's any more, if I can think of anything more, I will tell you, right? And then she's like, yeah, she's like, let's go with it, right? And then they're leaving, and it's one of my favorite lines in the entire movie. Oh, Senator, one more thing. Love your suit. And I believe him. I think he loves this suit.
Yes, I do too. I mean, he's
a man of culture.
He's clearly a man of fashion.
Yes. Well, there's also a man of fashion in this movie. But
yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. An interesting kind of fashion. But yeah.
My favorite part is the next part, though, is like, they're still on the tarmac, and Chilton's trying to take all the credits. Like, I, Dr. Chilton, was responsible for this. And then they're asking him a question. Instead of answering them, he just starts spelling his name. That's Chilton. Chilton. Right. And that brings us to like the next set piece, which is just absolute. I mean, oh wait, I forgot the point. That's right. So the last point when we're talking about the lotion, right?
Yeah.
And she's asking about getting out, right? Before the scene ends, she notices that there's fingernail marks and fingernails embedded into this well. And so now she realizes she's not the first person that's been in that well.
Yeah. Like bloody fingernail marks. And there's actually fingernails sticking out of one of the stones. But yeah, she's clearly not the first person to be in there.
And we mentioned it when they were kind of doing like the autopsy or just going over the body in West Virginia. One of the things I noticed is that like the fingernails kind of broken off, and the other ones that hadn't looked like there had been stuff kind of stuck in under where they were kind of digging at something. Yeah. Which obviously we know, at that point was those walls. Yeah. Anyhow. So, but Clarice has made the journey down to Memphis also.
Yes.
To talk with.
And
she has his artwork.
Yes,
Where'd she get his artwork?
So he has been placed in. Is it a hotel that they're in?
It's not,
or is it like it's never specified what kind of building they're in? But there's this big open room with a plexiglass cell in the middle of it, and that's where he's put. That's where Hannibal Lecter is put.
I want to bring up. I mean, this is obviously not for the movie. I mean, for the actual setting of the movie. I thought I saw here somewhere. I don't see it here right now. About what they actually used, I think was like a history museum. Was the actual like for the filming of it?
Okay,
is what it was. So, anyway, yeah. So they, I mean, it's big. It's just in the center of like what's a large open area on one of the upper floors.
Yeah,
and he has access to a lot of things. He's got a table in there. He's got music.
And he's been working on another drawing. He's been working on a drawing of Clarice holding a lamb.
Yep. And there's 2 guards that are up there. And there's a bunch of guards in the lobby.
Yeah.
And I love the guard that's like, I think it's probably the guard that's like the lead guy here, right?
Which
has the mustache.
Yeah, I mean, Boyle's one of his guards too, right?
Yes.
Or is that later that Boyle comes in?
No, we saw Boyle early.
Boyle was earlier than, yeah. Boyle is then one of his guards at one point in here. I can't remember if Boyle was in this scene or not.
Sergeant Tate.
But anyway.
Boyle here, and then Sergeant Pembry is the other one that's up there.
So anyway.
But the main guard that's down there that has like the mustache, right? He's like, Dr. Chilton gave certain things like, I have his drawings that I can bring up, right? And, she has to check her revolver, right?
Yep.
She leaves, her ammo as well. And there's also, I love that there's you can tell like this is like a rookie cop that's just kind of hanging around down there too, right? So she goes up and, she talks with, Lecter, and they resume their back and forth.
She brings him his drawings back, and
they talk about what happened after the screaming of the lambs.
Yeah, and I guess there's part of the cell is bars because she's able to reach in through.
Yes.
And drop the drawings off through the bars.
But it's mostly bars, I think.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's right. It's mostly bars. Part of it is plexiglass, but yeah, it's mostly bars. But yeah, so yeah, he asked her if she was able to silence the screaming of the lambs. And
that's right. That's right. She goes up when I was talking about the youngest cop. She rides up the elevator with him.
Yeah,
and his name is Murray, and she asks like, is it true what they say? He's some kind of vampire? It's like. Who's like, I don't have a name for what he is.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's when we need to get back up and they're talking about what happens with the lambs.
Yep. And she reveals
the other cop's name is Sergeant Tate.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she reveals it.
Yeah, she reveals that.
Go ahead.
After experiencing this trauma with the lambs. With the lamb, her uncle getting ready to slaughter this lamb, she grabbed the lamb and ran away with it. And she didn't get far.
She's like 10.
Yeah, she was 10. Then, she's got a lamb with her, and she didn't get far. But she was picked up and taken home, taken back to the farm, and she was stuck living with her uncle and aunt who slaughter lambs. I mean, they have a lamb farm, so they have a sheep farm. So yeah, of course they're gonna need the meat. And so she doesn't quite reveal what happened to the lamb that she stole and tried to escape with until Hannibal asks her, "And what happened to the lamb?" And she reveals that they killed it.
Poor lamb.
Yeah.
And that's what she's got to silence. It's the silence of the lambs.
Yeah.
And they kind of get to that later because they also then now have to talk about the case. And the lecturer's like, I love it. He's like, how she did a nice job with the anagrams herself. Anthrax Island.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you too, like Lewis Friend, iron sulfide, fool's gold. Like, she saw through it right away. Like, yeah, no, like that's not his name.
Yeah. I mean, she also has the experience from Moffat.
Yes, she does. So, and he just tells her, like, I've studied the case file. Have you? Everything you need to find him is right there in those pages, whatever his name is. And then I was like, she's like, like she wants to know. And he's like, first principles, Clarice. Simplicity. Read Marcus Aurelius. Watch Gladiator.
Yes. Watch Gladiator.
Richard Harris has the clues.
Yes, he does. He tells them to Maximus.
And then Commodus smothers him.
Listen to our Gladiator episode.
And finally, he's like, what is it that he does? What does he do? And Clarice is like, no, he kills. Like, and the lecturer just is sharp. It's like, no, that's incidental, right? That's not the main thing that he does. No. What need does he serve by killing them, right? And finally, she's trying to answer. It's like, the lecturer's like, no, he covets. That's his nature. And it's like, how do we covet? Do we seek things out? And Clarice is like, no. And I was like, right, precisely. Again, I love the Socratic method. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter will lead you to the Socratic method. This is textbook.
Yeah.
Right. He's just like, we cover what we see every day. Right.
If Hannibal was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, he and Socrates would have gotten along great.
Oh yes. And he's finally like, you see people coveting you. You see all those male eyes gazing down upon you. You've seen Chilton. You've seen Crawford, all looking at you, right?
Yeah.
Finally, I think this is gonna be our last time, right? And then finally Chilton comes up and
he's surprised that she's there because she's not supposed to be there with him. So he sort of rushes her out, but before she gets dragged out, she leaves the case file with Hannibal.
Well, yeah, she had it, and
she had it in her, and she drops it in through the bars. She's like, "Here's your case file."
Yep. And they rub fingers as as they exchange it. And I love how how they leave it. It's like, please tell me if those lambs stop screaming. Right? And then they kicked her out.
Did she have the case file, or did he have it at that time? And
he had it, and she gave it back to him.
Or he gave it back to her?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So, finally, we cut, and now it's dinner time.
Yeah.
And this is this whole set sequence is it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right?
They bring him a
Hannibal's
steak.
Listen.
They bring Hannibal a steak.
No, they bring him lamb chops.
Oh, lamb chops. That's right. Lamb chops. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Nice.
Never mind. Yeah.
Nice.
They
bring
nice
piece of rare lamb chops.
Yes, lamb chops, because he requested lamb chops.
And they even comments like, he even requested lamb chops. I mean, they don't get it, but whatever.
They don't get it.
He's listening to Bach while they come in there, right? And they have a whole sequence where he's supposed to sit back against the cell. He puts his arms through, and they handcuff him, right? Mm-hmm. And they come in, and they put down his plate there on the table, right? He asks him, to mind the drawings. And they're polite. They mind the drawings.
Yes, they move the drawings out of the way before they put the plate down.
What we don't realize is that before this, we see that he has palmed a piece of Chilton's pen.
Now,
how he got it, I don't know how he got this.
He was in a straitjacket when Chilton left his pen, and so they never showed how he got the pen, how he picked it up. They never showed where he hid it in all these moves.
I'm sure there's something somewhere that explains this. It's just not in this movie. Or at least not in the final cut of this movie.
Yeah.
So, anyway. So, yep. He's kind of, he's fiddling around with the handcuffs as they're putting his dinner on the table. And the one guard, he's just kind of yawning because he's got the big ring of keys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big ring of keys.
A big comically large ring of keys that every jailer has.
Like, why would they need a giant ring of keys
for one cell?
The only cell. Anyhow. So he finally gets it loose, and then as the one guard is going to put it down, and it is which guard? It's Pembry, I believe. Not Pembry. It's Boyle. Charles Napier.
Yeah, Boyle is putting the food down.
He slams the cuffs into his wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then he gets out the mace and sprays Pembry in there. Right.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to bite Pembry in the face.
Yes, bites Pembry in the face.
Now, okay, so we talked about how they don't show a lot. No, we see him.
Yeah, we see him chomp down on his face. Yeah, we see him chomp down on his face.
We've waited for a lot of gore in this movie. Now you get gore.
And then he picks up Boyle's nightstick, and he just starts beating Boyle.
Beating him. And again, he's in a white T-shirt, and you just see the blood starting to splatter.
You don't actually see him hitting Boyle with the nightstick, but you do see the blood splattering
on his T-shirt.
Yeah.
And now it's also starting to splatter on his face because he's had blood on his face in the first place because he just
chopped down on Pembry. But yeah, so he beats Boyle to death.
And then we hear him, the box still playing, and he's listening to music. And then Pembry, he's still alive for now because he's just been bitten in the face. He's incapacitated.
Yeah.
But, he remembers, you could see him start to go towards him. He picks up like a little pocket knife, and that's that for right now. And we get to the lobby.
The lobby, and
strange things start to happen as after she leaves the lobby, right? And they hear. They don't really hear. They hear some gunshots.
Yeah, they hear a couple of gunshots coming from upstairs. And so that sets them all on alert. And
then they start to radio up, and there's no answer on the radio.
Yeah.
And then the elevator starts to move.
Yeah. Because it's one of those old-style elevators that has, the dial on the outside that shows what floor it's on with the arrow that, points to which floor it's on. So you see that start to move. And so they know the elevator's moving. It stops on 3.
And it goes back up.
It goes back, yeah. And then
they go up to check on, whatever floor where the cell was, right? And they open it up, and it's like the lights are out, and they got like looks like they just got spotlights somehow.
Yeah.
Right? And
they see Boyle in the cell, dead, and they see Pembry laying on the ground, on the floor, and Hannibal is nowhere to be found.
Well, okay, so Boyle's not really in the cell. He has been lifted up to the rafters.
That's right.
And
he's hanging.
Disemboweled
from there,
and he's splayed out like an eagle.
Splayed out like an eagle, disemboweled, hanging from the bars. Like sort of crucified at the bars.
Yeah.
And
so Sergeant Tate, he's looking at the rookie, and it's like, talk to him. And the rookie's like, what do I say?
He's
like, it's Sergeant Pembry.
They see Pembry's still breathing.
Yes. So they have, the paramedics are there now. They get Pembry up on the gurney, and they get him down first to the ambulance.
Yeah, and Pembry's face is mutilated. Right? It looks like it's more than just a bite taken out of it at this point.
So they wait they wait for the elevator to come back up after Pembry's gone down with the EMTs.
Mm-hmm.
And they get in the elevator, and they're talking on the radio, and all of a sudden blood starts to drip on them.
A drip of blood starts falling, and they look up, and the trap door on the top of the elevator there's some blood.
It's blood. So Tate kind of whispers in the radio, right? And then it opens up at the bottom, and there's some SWAT guys there, and they come in. They got the little step stool to open up the trap door,
and
right?
they can't open it. There's
body
something...
kind of falls over, and all you really see is the back, and it's like the back half. The back.
Well, no. First, before they try to open it, is they send a couple of officers up to the floor above,
right?
They open up the elevator and they look down and they see.
And they fire a warning shot.
Yeah, they see Hannibal laying there on his stomach, and they have
orders not to kill him.
Yeah, so they
still might be needed.
He's not responding to their calls, so they fire a warning shot into his leg, and he doesn't move. So they figure, okay, well, he's died from his wounds because he's clearly bleeding into the elevator. So that's when they try to open up the trap door, but he's laying on top of it, so they can't open it really.
Yeah, so that's when they bring in the guys, and So and then when they kind of open it, he kind of falls over, but just like this top half, but you don't see the back.
Yeah, he kind of dangles down in there.
The music plays up, and now we're back into the ambulance, and then like a tunnel. The music's perfect here, right?
Yeah.
It's apt. You kind of hear like the paramedic in the back that's kind of talking to the emergency department where they're heading, and all of a sudden the body sits up, takes off the oxygen mask, and takes off
his mask. Yes, takes off Pembry's face. Hannibal.
Oh, it's Lecter.
Yeah, it's Hannibal Lecter. He had killed Pembry, cut off his face, and worn it like a mask in order to escape.
Yeah.
So the one that was in the elevator shaft on top of the elevator was actually Pembry Hannibal's clothes.
Without
a face.
And obviously doesn't have Lecter's face.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have his own face.
Yeah, he was the precursor to the Mel Gibson movie The Man Without a Face. Only he was the literal man without a face.
All right. And then Clarice is just, Ardelia, is talking with Clarice, and Clarice is like, I don't think he's going to come after me. He would consider that rude. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you, but he'd consider it rude.
So we don't hear from Hannibal anymore in this movie until the very end.
The very end. Yep. It's now all back on Buffalo Bill. And so now all of a sudden, just the two of them just talk, and they realize like, oh, he must have known the victim. We're talking about how he covered it and got familiar with the first victim.
Mm-hmm.
So she's off to Ohio, Belvedere, Ohio. Back in the beginning for the Belvedere.
Ohio.
The Belvedere, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to talk with the father of the first victim, right?
Yeah.
Frederica Bimmel, right? And so, they're talking like, and the dad's like, yeah, no, they came and they talked, a while back, and no one's talking to me in a while. And so she leads him up to the room, his room, right? Or not his room, her room, Frederica's room, right? And doesn't see a whole lot except for like a music box where she's, has secret like Polaroid photos of her posing in her underwear.
Yeah.
And she put this back, and then she looks down. There's a room at the end of the hallway, and there's a mannequin. And she's looking around, and well, I guess she talked with an old, like a friend of hers also at first about how, she was excited that her friend got this job in the city. So just kind of these, chit chat. Doesn't reveal a whole lot. So yeah, so she goes into, the extra room at the end of the hall, and there's a dummy. And then she opens the closet, and she sees on this dress, I guess, like tailor's like tape.
Yeah.
Where they have cut out diamonds, and she realizes she's seen these patterns before all on the body.
Mm-hmm.
She realizes that, Buffalo Bill is making a suit.
Yep, he's making a person suit.
Yes. So what we have missed at this point, we've seen at this point, is the scene there also where we get Buffalo Bill in his basement of horrors, and he's putting on makeup.
Yep, he's putting on makeup, music, and he's talking to himself while looking in the mirror. And yeah.
He's like, I would fuck me.
And then he has himself a little tuck it and dance party with himself.
Yeah. That's the simple way of putting it. Yeah. Anyhow.
And meanwhile, right behind him, there is a dressmaker's mannequin that has pieces of skin sewn together. Yeah, it looks like he's most of the way through making a suit. Making himself a dress.
Anyhow, yeah, so that's when, so she calls back to Crawford. It's like, oh yeah, like he was making himself a suit, he's a tailor, and I'm here in Ohio and all this. And it's like, well, no, we found him, because they did some research over, hitting the hospitals. After Lecter escaped, they probably realized that he was lying about Lewis' friend, and they probably researched that and realized that was all BS, right? So yeah, he's like, yeah, he lives outside Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't have found him without you.
Yeah. And meanwhile, when was it that we saw Catherine again?
Oh, that's right. So yeah, we're seeing Catherine at different points with Alphys. So she's now trying to capture Precious.
Yes, she's got a chicken bone, and yeah, she ties it to I don't know how she got the string. I don't know where she got that from, but she ties a chicken bone to a piece of string, and she tosses it up there to try to lure Precious to the edge of the well. And so she ends up doing it. Like after a few tries, Precious grabs the bone and she yanks her down into the well with her. And this alerts Buffalo Bill. And so he's got to cut his tuck it and dance party short.
And he's angry because Precious means a lot to him.
Yes.
And she's like, no, I think she's got a broken leg. You better get me out of here.
Better get me out of here. And he's just yelling down to her, and she's like, let me out and I'll give you Precious back. And he's just like, don't hurt her. And yeah, he doesn't let her out. So Precious just kind of stays down there with Catherine. But at this time, there's a knock on they're ringing the doorbell.
Police finds out
there's a doorbell
about someone that Frederica, old lady that she used to work with. Was so she decided to check.
This is where it's kind of cutting between Crawford and his people and Clarice. And one of Crawford's guys rings the doorbell, and then we get this real loud bell that the doorbell's connected to down in the basement going off.
Yeah, it's well cut.
Yeah.
We should also mention that when you see all these scenes in the basement, a lot of times, there's moths flying around.
Yes, there's moths flying around.
So
yeah, and we get some close-ups on them on some of them, and they are the dead set moths.
So Buffalo Bill answers the door, and Clarice is there, and she's asking for the lady that used to live there. And Buffalo Bill just tries to cut short, like, oh no, she doesn't. No one with that name lives here anymore, or whatever. And of course, Clarice is still not taking no for an answer and is trying to kind of extend the conversation to get whatever information she can get, right? And then they mention the name Frederica Bimmel, like, oh yeah, that big fat girl. They find out what happened to her, which, you would think if it was a small town and she was the victim of a serial killer, he would know.
Yeah.
He's not playing it really well.
Yeah.
He's not doing a good job. Anyhow, so he eventually just lets Clarice in and saying, oh yeah, I can find that woman's information. And they go into the kitchen, right?
Well, no, she's still in the living room. Buffalo Bill walks into the kitchen, and there's a gun. There's a revolver on the stove.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And he's thinking about going for, and then they keep talking. And then eventually she ends up seeing like a moth. Yeah, flying around. So that clues her off, right? And so she has a revolver, right? And so
she draws her weapon.
First, before she even does that, she just slowly kind of undoes her little holster.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So she can get to
undoes the snap on her holster.
Yep. And then I think they're at the point where they both know that this is gonna go somewhere, right? And she draws it, right? And he drops the things, and he has his hands kind of up in the air, making like he's gonna put them behind his head, and then he like darts.
Darts grabs the gun off the stove, which this is a hand cannon that he's got on the stove.
It's a hand cannon. So eventually it leads her down into the basement, but it's where he turns off all the lights in the basement. And if you remember,
he's got night vision.
Movie, he's got night vision.
Yeah, so he turns off all the lights.
Oh, cool, night vision.
He turns on his night vision goggles, and Clarice is down there fumbling around.
Yep.
Actually, she finds
Catherine before
the lights get turned on. So yeah, she goes down there. She finds the big room with the well in it. Finds Catherine. Catherine's still alive down there, so she's trying to reassure her that she's here to get her out.
Of course, she moves on, and Catherine's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Get me out of here!"
He's like, I got to take care of this real quick. I'll be right back." And Catherine is not having it.
And then the lights go out.
Yeah, then the lights go out.
She fumbles around.
She fumbles around, walking through this maze of a basement.
And again, and finally we get to the last scene. Like, they get in the same room, and it gets back the idea of this male gaze back on her again, right? And he makes a few mistakes, right? But it's so well done. The scenes were like, it seems like they're like an inch apart from each other.
Yeah.
And she has no idea.
She has no idea he's right in front of her. And then so she turns around.
And we do get eventually, cutting in between that, there's a scene where Crawford realizes they're at the wrong house.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Shit, Clarice."
Yeah. So they try to rush to where Clarice is,
and they're in Illinois, so they gotta fly.
They gotta get to Ohio quick. So
and then finally, for whatever reason, Buffalo Bill hasn't already cocked his hand cannon.
He hasn't. So I believe it is a Colt Python that he's got, right?
Okay,
at least that's what it looked like. Which 357 Magnum, and so he's inches away from her.
Yeah.
And she turns around, so her back is facing him. And as she's taking a few steps forward, he raises the gun and cocks it. And she hears that, turns around, and just starts shooting.
Yeah. And, after some of these shots, does he get off any shots himself?
I think he gets one off, but he misses.
I think he gets one off. I think that's what kind of breaks the basement window.
Yeah.
It helps
and lets some light
through.
In. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's lying there, like she kicks the gun away, and he's been hit multiple times, and he's bleeding, and he's twitching.
Yeah.
Right. And finally, Crawford and the rest of the FBI come, and she's caught Buffalo Bill. They've rescued.
Yeah, they've gotten Catherine out.
Catherine Martin. They get her out, and it's a job well done.
Mm-hmm.
And they advance to the academy graduation.
Yep.
And she's becoming an official FBI agent.
Yep.
And now the prize is a cake that is the FBI seal.
That's got the FBI seal on it. Yep.
I like, though, that, we see Crawford there after she receives her official badge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of off to the side of the stage, politely clapping,
yep,
and giving a nod of approval to her, right? And then they speak again. He's like, "I'm going to get out of this. I'm not good with these type of things," which makes sense. He's not one of these gung-ho FBI guys. He's a smart dude. He likes to solve crimes. That's the extent of it for him, right?
Yeah.
So, and then there's a call for Clarice. She goes to get it. Oh, yep. And it's Hannibal Lecter.
It's Hannibal Lecter calling.
And he's asking if the lambs stop screaming, which, if you haven't picked up by now, the lambs that need to stop, that stop the lambs screaming, she needs to save Catherine Martin.
Yes. And she saved Catherine Martin. And so the lambs have stopped screaming for now.
And he tells her, "Don't worry about trying to, I'm not going to be long enough for you to go ahead and trace this call."
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to have a quick conversation.
Yep.
It's impressive. Like, he knew that she graduated and to call at that exact time.
Yeah, and then
he's keeping.
It cuts to where he is, and there's a plane, and people are getting off the plane in the Bahamas, and we see a familiar face. We see Dr. Chilton.
And we haven't seen Dr. Chilton in a while either.
No, we see Dr. Chilton getting off the plane, and Hannibal mentions that he's going to have a friend for dinner.
Well, first he says, "You don't have to worry about me chasing you.
Mm-hmm.
You're far too interesting. The world needs more people like you."
Yes. But
And it's
if
like,
you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a friend for dinner.
I'm going to have an old friend.
An old friend for dinner.
And I love it. I love Hannibal's look here. He's just nice and relaxed. He's got a Panama hat.
Yep, he's got a Panama hat on, and he's stalking his prey. He's stalking Chilton. And
then he got the music goes back up.
You get the idea that Chilton's probably not going to be in the next movie.
You just ask you, like, what type of wine goes with Chilton? With Chilton? Like, is it a nice Malbec? Is it a blend?
I don't know.
Or does he go better with white? Do you eat him with fava beans?
I don't know.
It's the Bahamas. Maybe you go with black beans.
Maybe. And maybe it's not even wine. Maybe
it might be rum.
You have a glass of rum.
Yes, nice white rum. And that's the end.
Anyway, that's the end. The credits start rolling.
It is. I'm sorry. This is one of the most satisfying endings ever.
Yes, it is. It is a satisfying ending.
You get the climax, a really well shot climax, where they get the bad guy. Yay!
They save the girl.
And I forgot. Oh wait, there's the other bad guy, Hannibal Lecter.
Yep, and he
congratulates our hero.
Yes,
and then he gets that satisfying final line. I'm having an old friend for dinner. And you don't really mind it so much because you don't like Chilton. So you're like, okay.
So
I guess, it's like when the shark eats the bad people or the dinosaurs eat the bad people.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, Chilton, whatever.
Yep.
And it ends. And it's fantastic in every way. I've seen this movie so many times and I can watch it again and again.
See, this is only my second time seeing it.
Okay.
So the first time I saw it was back in 2009 or so.
All right.
Yeah, I think it was like 2009. Back one of the times when I was going through my phases of, all these movies that, I've never seen that have always been on my list of stuff to watch and, had Netflix and all that. I would get the DVDs from Netflix and it was one of those movies.
Yeah, I remember I had a friend in college that he really liked this movie. That's the first time I saw it. I believe it was the first time I saw it. And yeah, I've seen it so many times since then. And I could continue to watch it.
It's an excellent
There's so
movie.
many layers to this movie.
It is an excellent movie, yeah.
The layers, and it's funny. It's again, like, not every Best Picture movie kind of gets ingrained into the wider pop culture.
No, but this one does. Yeah,
and it's a disturbing movie. For a movie, it's really disturbing.
Oh yes,
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's got memorable lines and scenes. We talked earlier about the fava beans, which we saw in Dumb and Dumber, and then the mask itself, and
and again, it's really
it's funny.
It's listed. It's categorized as a horror movie. It's a thriller. It's not so much a horror movie. It has horror elements to it, but it's not. It's more thriller than anything else. And
Anthony Hopkins could have easily become typecast after this, and he didn't.
No, he's such a good actor.
Played such a variety of roles, and I mean, he ended up winning a second Oscar for The Father, which was a completely different role.
And the interesting thing is the instructions on, like, so when Clarice first went to see Hannibal, the beginning of the movie, when she first went, the instructions on what to do with, like, dealing with Hannibal are the same instructions that are given in the movie Instinct with
that's right,
with Anthony Hopkins' character there on how to deal with him. So both Anthony Hopkins characters have the same instructions on how people are supposed to deal with them.
I have not seen Instinct since it came out in theaters.
I haven't either.
I remember seeing it the last day of school one year, I think.
Yeah.
And I have not seen it since.
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters and I haven't seen it since.
That does play off as more of his Hannibal Lecter role. But he's played Martin Van Buren. He's played so many other roles. He's played Odin. Yeah. So, and Jodie Foster didn't get typecast either. She's terrific also. So if you haven't seen this classic, I would recommend you do it very soon.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else that you want to say about it?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. So as always, if you want to follow us on social media, then go ahead and check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. We are Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out, A-N-D. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. We are also on X or Twitter. That is R&T Cinematic. And if you want to check out some of our reviews on various movies, some we've done on the podcast, some we haven't done, some we will do, some we won't do, then check out our Letterboxd That is Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, CINE Adventure. And if you just want to send us an email, let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you thought about Silence of the Lambs. Do you prefer Hannibal or Red Dragon or even Manhunter? Do you prefer any of those over Silence of the Lambs, or do you prefer Silence of the Lambs over those? Or is there a completely different movie that you like better? Let us know.
Yes.
You can send us an email, Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure at gmail.com. Once again, the and is spelled out. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. But just let us know. Are there other movies that you think we should cover on the podcast? Just let us know how you're doing. We want to hear from you.
What's your favorite Best Picture Oscar winner?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it later this month.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe we'll do it next Oscar season, But anyway.
Maybe next week's.
Maybe. So, we want to hear from you. And if you enjoy the podcast, then go to social media, give us a like and a follow, but then it'll also go to your favorite podcast app.
Give us a like or a follow.
Yes. And subscribe.
Comment.
Give us a good rating, a good review. That's how we move up in the standings, in the search, in the recommendations, all that stuff. And, just help us to be able to reach more movie lovers and reach more ears. But next time, we are going to be continuing with our Best Picture winners Oscar season series. And we are going to go way back.
We're going way back.
We're going farther back than we've ever gone before in this podcast.
We're going even further back than the furthest one. The furthest movie back we've gone so far is Rocky.
Yeah, which was 1974.
76.
76. Oh, 76. That's right. Yeah, 76.
Godfather 2 won.
Godfather, yeah.
74. Rocky is one of the movies that we've already covered. It's one Best Picture.
So we are going all the way back to 1942.
So one of the most classic movies of all time.
Yeah, we're doing Casablanca. So if you have not seen that classic gem, check it out.
It is on Max.
Yes, it is currently on Max.
It's a very easy movie to find. I'm excited because we have not done a movie from the golden age of Hollywood.
No, but we're going to do it next time.
So we're going to do one.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good one to start with because it's up there as probably one of the most famous movies ever made.
Yeah. It's got a lot of classic lines you hear everywhere nowadays in it. It's referenced so many times.
I think that's a testament, and we'll obviously discuss it next week, but I think it's a testament that 80 years later, even younger generations now, it's still a movie that persists within the general vernacular.
Yeah.
So
join us next time for Casablanca.